Hey, folks, thanks for joining me for this episode of the Embellish Podcast, a podcast focused on product stories, product storytellers, interesting brand ambassadors, and anybody else who happens to agree to show up. Whether you're a bourbon fan, a geek, a casual observer, or someone just floating through this channel, I hope you find what we have to say interesting. If you got here by chance, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Hopefully, I can be found on any podcasting platform that exists. And if you can't find me on one, please send me an email at embellishpod@gmail.com, and I'll try to get that taken care of. I also generally live stream the recording of these episodes on YouTube on Wednesday nights, and you can find all of my links on Instagram at embellishpod or Twitter with the same handle. I have a website. It is www.embellishpod.com. It's a place to pick up these links, episode details, and more. Today is Wednesday, August the 31st, and I am super excited to have a guest joining me. I have Aaron from Nevada H&C Distilling. They create Smokewagon bourbon and a few other things. Looks like he's moving right to the most important thing and making sure there's something to drink there. So it's a good place to start, right? So I've got a couple of bottles of that are mine.
Sorry, I thought you'd let me know when you were getting me in.
No, you're fine. So you're absolutely fine. I'm working on a uncut unfiltered. This is batch 39.
Oh wow, an old one.
I've had this around for a while. So I live in far western Kentucky, and Smokewagon products are few and far between in this particular part of the state. And I've been on the bandwagon for a long time. And actually, when you first kind of came to my attention, I was in a online bourbon club, and you did a single barrel pick with them, and then it was a very, very infamous single barrel pick.
The Bourbon Enthusiast one.
Yeah.
Man, can you believe that'll be 3 years in December?
Absolutely 3 years. Yeah. And I milked. So, the thing happened. There were 40 some odd bottles that were left. Right.
I remember that.
I got one of the 46 or 46 or 43 or whatever it was. Right. I had that. And I had that up until last spring. There was a meetup with some other people, because it was you have bottles of whiskey. I'll share just about anything with anybody. But that particular bottle had some story to it, some provenance. If you were French.
Did you get one of the second barrels I got for him for James?
No, I didn't. I was out of their bourbon club by that time because I spent way too much money on whiskey and was like, I got to get out of some clubs and save a few dollars. But I milked that one. I finally, I got enough whiskey nerds around that I brought it out and they knew what it was. And so there's a degree of appreciation. And I actually was saving it, because when I started this podcast, I had a list of 10 people. I'm like, if I can get these 10 people, I don't ever have to record another episode, because this will be it. And your name was on the list. And I was like, I'm going to save 2 ounces of it, so that way I have it. And then apparently historical John decided to drink those 2 ounces at some point in time, which is the purpose of it. So I don't have it, but I have some of this, and I've got some uncut the younger, and there's some small batch that's over here, and there's some straight, and I try to keep them around as much as possible. But that was kind of a thing that launched you into a platform. Maybe, I mean, you guys were around before that.
That was definitely what I shouldn't say. How I I would say how I handled it was what directed everyone towards the Instagram, and the Instagram had already been sort of established with content. So because I don't know how many members James has now, but back then it was 100,000 followers on Instagram. Right. And I didn't know. He actually just sent an email to the info at nevadadistilling.com email address. And so I put him on a list, and I got to him, and I sent him an email, and I didn't even know he had an Instagram until he tagged the Smokewagon with the sample bottles I sent him. But I would say that was, there was a couple defining things. The 2017, to show you how much the industry has changed in 5 short years. In 2017, uncut, unfiltered, and the private barrel I submitted, which I don't submit any rare stuff anymore. I only submit the core expressions. They both won a double gold. And we were one of 3 brands that year that won 2 double golds for a non-finished, just straight bourbon. And it was huge. And then I ran into the head of brown spirits for Pernod Ricard in Las Vegas. Actually, he was at a Las Vegas event and he requested to meet me. Steve Beal, Whiskey Hall of Famer, same. Because he was a judge. Both these guys were San Francisco World Spirits Competition judges. I think they still are, but in 2017 they were. And they were like, man, you are, because Pernod Ricard owned the Seagram's plant before LDI. Obviously, Steve Beal worked for Diageo. Diageo owned Seagram's. And so they were like, we know what you're working with here. And this is something really special. What you're doing with Uncut Unfiltered is amazing. And everybody was talking about it. And then I did a event up in Reno, and the Western Regional Manager for Compass Box was there, and he was a San Francisco judge. And nobody knew who I was. Well, still people don't know who I really know who I am in a lot of cases. But he was like, he saw I was out all the time doing the events, doing everything myself, and he saw me behind the Smokewagon table. He's like, "Oh, you're Smokewagon." I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh man, everybody in San Francisco is talking about Uncut Unfiltered." He was like, in a world where now it's obvious that all these brands, even as early as 2017, are just trying to hop on the bourbon train and just taking source bourbon. He's like, it is obvious that you are doing something special, that you are taking juice from Indiana and doing something, and you're actually trying to create something. We can tell by the flavor profile, and everybody's talking about it. So that was like, as far as the industry, that 2017 was when we really started, like, people in the industry were talking about, especially Uncut Unfiltered. And then, what was that? It was December 2019, man. December 2019.
It bled over into January a little bit. The whole thing. And I'll say, if I were to ever, I work in a product industry with software, and if you're looking for a person who wants to represent their brand, the way that you reacted to that particular situation, I don't think that Smokewagon ends up where it is today. I think it ends up somewhere good because you guys were already pumping a good product, but you kind of exemplified, I stand behind my brand. I stand behind what is right. I stand behind making sure people are made whole in a way that they need to be made whole. Like, people just latched onto it, at least in my perspective. And I think it took what may have been a whiskey brand that might have been like for whiskey nerds and made it like, now it's this mass appeal thing.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, because one of the main comments I got was nobody has stood up for the whiskey or the bourbon community before. They would always just be like, "Oh well, sorry, sorry about that." And because of my life experiences, I mean, I just remember when that was happening, and I told my, so the chain of events was the distributor tells me this is what's going on, and I was like, "What?" What are you talking about? And so the whole reason it happened was K&L, who the barrel was supposed to go through, they posted on their website, "We're getting the Bourbon Enthusiast barrel," with a picture of a bottle. So it had like the proof or the ABV, it had the barrel number, it had everything. And so when Naz saw that, which he apparently, I guess he's rebranded now,
you'll never be able to rebrand past that, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, his store is gone, but his websites of whatever. But so the distributor so he contacted the distributor and he said, "Hey, do you have this?" And the distributor said, "Yes, I do." He's like, "Well, do you have a PO for it? Because California law is," and everything. That is what happened.
Right.
And then he said to the distributor, "I know the law because this is what I do. I know that Eureka can't take all their barrels. So when I see Eureka, the restaurant chain, if you're not in California, you might not be familiar with them. When they get a private pick, I take the rest because I know they don't have a PO for everything." And so he was bragging about it. And he thought that like this was would be perceived. Actually, I shouldn't guess what he thought.
Right.
All I know is that communication with the distributor made it seem like that he thought that this was something that was enviable, like, haha, I figured out a way to, do this. And the thing was, man, I remember sitting there going, he shouldn't do. I was like, I didn't want to have any communication with him because he's a California retailer,
Mm-hmm.
and so the amount of communication I can have with California law with a retailer is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, we just gotta be clinical, and that was the conversation that I had with my business partner, who used to be an attorney. And I said, look, we have to do something here, because
Mm-hmm.
so when it finally went down, we got an attorney, the distributor and I, because I was going to say, well, let me bring it back. And the attorney was like, no, it's not yours anymore. Once it transfers out of your bond, it is the distributor's possession. You can't do anything. Like, I couldn't do
Right.
anything. And he told the distributors, like, you can't do anything either. You have to give them 80%. And so once we understood where we were as far as legally, it was like, man, well, this is it. This is what we have to do. And so I
Mm-hmm.
told the store, and I told James, and he told all his members, and the direct messages started coming in like, how could you let this happen? Da-da-da.
Right.
And I told my business partner, I was like, this is not good. I said, I can see where this is going to go. I
Mm-hmm.
could see where it was going to go, like, from the beginning. And I was like, we need to be proactive. We need to let these people know that we did everything we could and that we feel bad about it, which is genuine. It's like one of the things when
It
I
was
talk.
evident that it was genuine.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no concern about that.
It's like one of those things when I talk about like how the brand was built, and connecting with people on Instagram and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is not like some, okay, here's our business model. What you're gonna do
Right.
is like talk to people. And it's like it's just what I feel is right. And even with my distributors now, like, everything's based on relationships and gut instinct, and if I like people and if I want to deal with them, because I just, I'm not going to deal with anybody I don't like. I'm not going to deal with big corporations that are a pain in my ass. I'm not going to. And so anyhow, so he said, just tell the facts. He's like, don't talk shit about Naz. Just
Mm-hmm.
explain the process. And so I did. And I was like totally stressed out, because I was like, man, I don't want bourbon enthusiast people to hate us. Like, I really like James.
Yeah.
It's funny because for that barrel, I shipped him samples. The next one, he came out, and that was right before COVID. He was the last person to physically come and do a barrel pick, and that was in February of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And that was before, like, we blew up and I could sneak people in there. Now we're under too much scrutiny, and we don't have a tasting room license, so I'm not supposed to. But anyhow, so
Right.
yeah, it was like and those videos were real. Like, I was on vacation in Montana, and I
Right.
was just
Yeah.
like, man, we gotta fucking do something here. We gotta let these people know. And so that's what the videos were. And then everybody was so nice.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was so amazing. Like, the comments were great, and I really appreciate it. I was so stressed out. And then, like, the next day I was like, oh fuck, everybody's amazing, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, uh, so yes, I think that definitely got us towards the social media. And the social media I had already kind of, it's tough, you got to figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're older. It's funny, I was at like a trade show, and like these young guys working for this other brand, they're like, yeah, man, you figured it out, Instagram, like, how'd you do it? I'm like, you were supposed to figure it out. You're young, man, I'm old. Like, you
Well, I
know
mean, you found a way to connect with people, and that's what it really
yeah.
boils down to. Is it felt like, I mean, from my end, because I'm looking at it from a consumer. This is pre-podcast. This is pre thinking about anything other than, like, I was on the list originally to buy the bottle, and then this thing happened, and then for the first time, I start seeing someone who is directly affiliated with a brand coming out, and you didn't go after the person who did, because at the end of the day, he didn't do anything that technically was illegal. I mean, there's
He
an
didn't do
ethical
anything that was
problem
illegal.
there.
Yeah.
Like, there's a significant ethical problem, but he didn't do anything that was illegal. And you didn't spend any time talking about that. You spent more time talking about kind of the ethos of your brand and how you wanted to go about trying to make things better and right, and being apologetic. And people's bullshit detectors can be pretty good. In
Oh
most of
yeah.
my life, the times that I've questioned my gut instinct, I've always been wrong for questioning it. And so, it came across. It was like,
I
this
know
is not
exactly what
someone
you mean,
telling a
by the
brand
way.
story, right? This is
Yeah.
this is not somebody telling a brand story. This is somebody who genuinely cares about what they're doing, the product they're putting on the shelf. And it came through. It comes through in the bottles, at
Well,
least from the
thank you.
ones that I've had. I haven't had everything, but And then
There's been, it's like I do the best I can, and
mhm,
there's always learning experiences. I mean, obviously, like long time ago, 2016, there was definitely learning experiences with
mhm,
small batch. There was even learning experience with uncut, unfiltered. People like always talk about, oh, the glory days of uncut, unfiltered. Oh, it used to be so much better. Like it won a silver medal in 2018, and
mhm,
I can't remember the other year because like I had to. I think maybe it was just 2018 because I had to learn to dial in the finish by spitting it out because in competitions they spit it out and it was like, oh, I
right.
was drinking it and it was like really good and then, but but yeah, even Uncut the Younger, I think like maybe the first I had to learn how it's all gonna change,
Mhm,
but yeah, I try, man. It's like when people hate on stuff, I'm like, I'm sorry. That's the best I can do. I've never like done anything that where I was like, we gotta get this bottled. Let's fuck, it doesn't taste the way I want. It's always been like I
mhm.
liked it. And maybe my palate was off, or maybe
Well, I mean,
what
it may not be I try to look at it this way. I've had a lot of different whiskeys, and there are some things that I just don't like, but it doesn't
yeah,
mean that they're bad. It just means that it doesn't hit my flavor receptors in the same way it might hit somebody else. And so kind of being cognizant of that and tasting through things, being like, oh, I can tell what was trying to happen here. I may not
right.
like it, but I can
Yeah,
say this is good for what it's supposed to be, right?
right.
And that sort of comes through. But you also have an attitude that is almost, and this may sound like an insult, it's not. There's almost this irreverence for whiskey nerds that you kind of
Uh,
push out there from time to time, where you talk about your special batch, small batch, or like kind of poking at people who are really about allocated whiskeys. And you did some giveaways where you're like, if this shows up on secondary, is
yeah, oh,
done,
yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that sort of attitude kind of coming at it. The whiskey aficionados, I think, also latch onto that. It's like,
Oh,
we can recognize like we're sort of obnoxious assholes.
look, man, the same thing holds true with like even the holiday bottles. People
Hmm.
get their britches in a twist over those things. I'm like, I don't know how to tell you guys this, but not everybody's miserable in their basement with a little book putting notes down. Some people like have friends and they're
Yep.
social, or maybe they just like holidays, or they go to parties. Like, or even for me in the bar business, Halloween is the number one drinking holiday for sure.
No kidding.
Yeah, especially in Vegas, way
Well,
more
that,
than
that that makes more sense than like
way
rural
more than
Kentucky,
St.
but
Patrick's Day or anything. And so it's like, man, it'd be cool, and so I don't know, it's just fun. It's and I design them, and so yeah, it's like, everybody. I don't know. My attitude is you should be drinking it and enjoying it. I mean, even when because I'm not a, I have no history.
mhm.
Like when I was doing it, I would be totally full of shit if I was told you like, oh yes, the first small batch I wanted to have stone fruit, and I just did it till I liked it,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, I really like this. I like it better than anything else, And I've told the story a million times at this point, but like the experts we had hired were like, don't do that because you've got 8 year and you want to put that in an age statement bottle, and small batch has no age statement. And I was like, well, we can't distill. The state laws changed. Some guy's trying to do it and he loses 48% in the first year. I think the writing's on the wall. This
Hmm.
is the source bourbon is the route we're going here. There is there, and it's funny because like I see people like, I would never drink source bourbon. I was like, oh shit, sorry, guy with 22 followers and no profile picture. I should have told my business partner, hey man, I know we've got, at this point, like 6 years into this and
Hmm.
however much money, but this guy over here won't drink source bourbon. So let's just shut it down, call it a day, close the doors, call it a loss.
And
And
I think that trend is dying off. I think people, it feels like you hit about the same time that maybe the broader whiskey group, maybe not the real nerdy nerds, but people were largely okay with the idea of drinking sourced whiskey, as long as you're not trying to pretend like you made it yourself, right?
that yeah, I mean, when we first released though, like there was people where I would do events and I would do things and I
Hmm.
would sit there and they'd be like, oh, so you're not really doing anything. I was like, well, I am actually. I'm blending it and we age it here, and I have an understanding of the warehouse, because
Hmm.
especially back then everything was racked and there was no palletized yet.
Hmm.
And still a lot of our stuff, most of our stuff I would say is racked. uh and nobody understood MGP. they were like, they would Google it and they thought it was just like this company that made food grade protein and ethanol for Purell, you know? And
Hmm.
I was like, and I had been there. I went to the Seagram's distillery in 2012. I think they'd only owned it for 8 months at that point or something like that. And it was an eye-opening experience to say the least. But it was, it's very industrial, but not like modern industrial, like
Right.
1930s industrial when it was built. But it's still majestic, and you see these massive masonry warehouses from the early 30s, and its location on the Ohio River is they chose that because that's the way they're always getting wind off the Ohio River every morning, and the mist blows in the off the Ohio River and floods the rack houses, and which is real because even the
Right.
palletized warehouses, they don't have the Seagram's engineering where it's double wall masonry with dirt, sub basement floors wicking water, and the proof still goes down over time in the new warehouses. So it's real. The
Yeah.
humidity coming off the river is real. And so I'm telling these stories and like, yeah, and I do this and I do that. And there was pushback, but I was just like, I'm not gonna lie. And it's funny because I don't know, maybe 2 years ago when we started blowing up, somebody was like criticized our distilled in Indiana was like too small. Like it's the same exact font as like the address and on all
Right.
our corporate information, because like you see guys now, they're like distilled by Squibb and Ross, doing business at Squibb and Ross at
Hmm.
MGP at this address on this, it's
Yeah.
like when we were doing that, no, the state was not, I'm sorry, the federal government was not enforcing that yet. We were like the
Hmm.
only ones. And then a year after that, when it started being enforced, that's when everybody switched a while to a blend of straight bourbons, to give you an
Hmm.
idea how much it's changed. You don't really see that as much anymore, but everybody did it. Everybody got multi-state, distillation stuff so they could tell their story about their still that they named Mildred or Melissa or Bertha. And now they're just doing, oh, we did source, but
Right.
now we're doing our own and
Hmm.
and blended straight bourbons, no state, distillation required on the back. And even now, people, they're like, "Oh, you're ever going to distill your own?" I'm like, "No, what? I can't do it better than them." Like
Right.
even some of the comments that people, positive comments, were like, "Man, this stuff is so clean." My friends came over and we crushed a bottle and nobody was hungover. It's like, yeah, because MGP's got this multi-million-dollar methanol sniffer. And when they cut
Right.
their hearts, they're watching a computer screen and they know the chemical composition of the distillate. It's not some guy going, okay, the temperature is 200 degrees and it doesn't smell like acetone anymore. So I think this is where we do our hearts.
Hmm.
It's super clean. So, but yeah, it was hard in the beginning, I would say. And again, kind of doing a full circle here to what we were talking about with bourbon enthusiasts. The thing that got me through it were people, because every weekend I was at a liquor store doing a tasting and everything was hard. My life was hard. it
Right.
was it took forever to get going. We finally got going. Things were moving very slowly, but at every tasting, my table would be surrounded,
Hmm.
like just 6 to 10 people deep. Everybody wanting to hear me talk about it, and I had no bullshit story. There was nothing about like if we found the recipe in my grandfather's shoe, or
Right.
like it was just like, hey, so I did this because small batch. That another thing, small batch has gotten better, but back then, I really made small batch was a little harsh because I exclusively drank it on the rocks in the
Hmm.
summertime, and I wanted it so when ice melted, it was like really nice and complex. And I would say, oh, do this and you know, th- it was, and everybody was like, because you're giving out free samples, and so you
Right.
get people that don't really drink bourbon and they'll tell you, they're like, I don't drink bourbon. I'm like, oh, what do you drink? They're like, oh, I drink scotch, but it's free booze. Let me have some, And I'm
Right.
like, okay, here you go. And they're like, whoa, this is really good. I really like this. And that's all I want, is like I want people to enjoy the experience of drinking it because I enjoy it and it's creative do it, it's creative, and you put it out there, and you hope people like it. And so if people like the way it tastes, but they're not going to drink it because it's sourced, that's cool. I don't want you drinking my stuff anyhow, because there's other aspects of your personality that are going to make you unpleasant, and I don't want you seen with one of my bottles, because you're going to
Right. I
ruin
don't
the
want you
image
out
of
at a
it.
party because
Yeah,
you're not a
you're
pleasant
gonna,
person at a party.
yeah, you're going to ruin the image of the brand. People will be like,
You are
"Oh
bad
man,
advertising for me." I like that.
that guy drinks like smoke. Oh, fuck that brand."
If that guy likes it, then it must be really
It must
terrible.
be pretentious juice. So
And
and
that's
so
the thing, is it's never come across as pretentious.
yeah.
There are some things like you could easily transition that with the design of the bottle, with some of the special, limited batches that you've done. You could cross into that pretentious threshold real fast. But the same people who are shitting on sourced whiskey are going to run to their nearest liquor store the first time a single barrel is put up on the shelf from a major producer, or somebody who
Yeah,
does distill.
where they have 30 labels but two mash bills,
Well, not
it's
even
like,
that. Just they're buying what someone picked off of a shelf because of its flavor profile. It has almost nothing to do with distillation when you get to the single barrel process, right?
oh
Like,
yeah.
because they're so varied, and they're like, well, I know they're all so varied. What now you break that thought process down. You say, okay, so now there's a person like you who's focusing on blending batches to create specific emotions, flavor profiles, whatever. And
Right.
I think it's something that's picking up in the United States. Like blenders
Oh, for
in
sure.
Scotland are like huge, but
Yeah.
blended whiskey was a
Same
dirty
with
word.
Japan. A
Right.
distiller in Japan's a scientist, and
Yeah. Well, and that's a distiller
by the
is a
way,
scientist.
yeah, and people, people say, "Oh, the distiller is nothing in Well, the distiller is not nothing. They
Right.
have a very difficult skill set, but that I don't have, nor do I want. Like, okay, let's say we start distilling on our own. Lake Mead is completely full, so I can humidify my warehouses so we don't get 48% volume loss. The
Mm-hmm.
state changes its laws. We're living in a magical paradise where I can do whatever I want. Well, I'm going to hire a master distiller, because I'm
Right.
not going to sit in the distillery all day watching chemical composition. I'm sorry, but I like my life now. Like, I come in and my samples are set up, and I
Mm-hmm.
blend my samples, and I figure it out, and we go over some stuff, and then I get out of there. I didn't work this hard for this long to be trapped. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right. And you find these the guys that are doing both, your craft distillers that are also the blender. I think of, Alan Bishop at French Lick, like he is both blender and distiller, and that's got to be just flat out exhausting and taxing, because
oh yeah,
they're two completely different art forms. There is an art to distillation, absolutely. But, like a prime example, Maker's Mark put out their whiskey drop series the last go round, and they had two bottles. One was selected by the master distiller, and one was selected by the master of maturation, which is going to be
right.
closer to a taster blender. And lo and behold, which one do you think is going to be better? Probably the maturation. Not to say
Right.
that the distiller didn't do a good job, but it's a different mindset, because you're tasting as it comes off the still and how you think it's going to go in the barrel.
Yeah.
But afterwards, who the hell knows?
Oh, look, here's an example is Harlan Wheatley has
Mm-hmm.
made he's trying to climate control and humidity control all the warehouses, so everything is exactly the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's a scientific experiment to him, and so you want a controlled environment for this chemical reaction. You have someone like me, my joy comes in getting. It could be like getting barrels that taste like dog shit. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a tough one. We got to figure out how to make this work.
Right.
Okay. And that's the beauty of bourbon for me, is like getting and that's why I keep when I do the blends, I don't blend all my 4-year together. All the 4-year, depending on its location and federal batch ID number, distillation run, it's all in separate tanks when we dump barrels.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. That's what I love. That's what I want to do is come in there. And now I come in there, all my samples are laid out for me. I don't do the barrel dumps. And then I get to do what my thing, man, and have a good
Mm-hmm.
time, and that's that's what's important to me. That's why I did everything I've done to get to this point, because
Mm-hmm.
when I was in the bar business, I was like, this isn't going to be fun forever, and I don't want to open up a bunch more bars and start traveling the country and dealing with bars. I want to figure out something where I can be creative all the time, and
Hmm.
and that we're in a central location shipping stuff out, and this was the next logical step. And I didn't really understand what it was going to be, and I kind of created it to fit what I wanted, because nobody was really, but it was just sort of worked out that way.
Hmm.
It was never like what I'm going to, again, it's not like when day one,
There
I was
wasn't
like,
like a
okay,
firm business plan
yeah.
of this
So
is
here's the plan. We're going to
right.
buy juice from MGP, and then I'm going to figure out how to make it proprietary by blending. I mean, when I first started and I didn't really understand distillation, I was like, I'm going to learn distillation. I'll be the best distiller ever.
Hmm.
And then I went to MGP and I was like, oh my God, what?
Why am I
How do
trying to
you
compete with these guys?
how do you scale to this? Like,
Right.
they've got a line of trucks to dump grain, and then there's a guy like doing, you don't really understand the process until you see behind the curtain. I think very few people have seen behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And even, and so that really, I still, again, if somebody's just already seen other podcasts or things like that, I've told the story like 100 times at this point. My business partner Jonathan, he found me out like standing on this balcony, like a fire escape balcony, looking out over all the warehouses and the rail cars and everything. And he was like, what are you doing? I was like, we can't do it how they told us we could do it.
Right.
How do you get here? How do you get to this? This is 20 acres. We have a 3,900 square foot space. Like, these buildings were built in the 30s. Like, how do you replicate any of this? And
It's
how do you
virtually impossible to
scale?
scale to that point. You to scale to that point, it takes 100 years. Like
Yeah.
that's what you're looking at. You might be able to do it faster now, but
Yeah, I mean, look at even, Blue Run's opening their own places.
yep.
$51 million. We did not have $51 million to to get started. We started
Right.
with a very, I mean, it was a decent amount of money, but nothing, not 10, not even 5 million, not even 3 million.
Mhm.
It was like, and that was the sort of the thing that where I had to figure out the Instagram and everything, because there was no money for marketing. All our money, the whole goal was, let's do this forever. So every decision was about inventory.
Mhm.
How can we stockpile inventory for the future? And so that was why I was obsessed with figuring out Instagram, because we didn't have any money to hire brand ambassadors or sales reps or anything, because
Mhm.
any extra money, or I should say all the money, because we weren't taking anything. I sold all the bars except for one. So I was like, whatever. John had the film business. So all the money was going. We made sure we never missed a year of contract distilling. That we every year we did that, and
Mhm.
that was our most important thing. That we were laying down new barrels every year.
Do you ever worry that with an outsourced model that eventually either MGP is going to get too expensive for you to maintain profitability, or they're just going to say we're only going to do our own in-house thing? Like, if MGP ever said, you know what, we're only going to make Ross and Squibb and it's only going to be our whiskey forever, like how many brands are like, now what the hell do we do? Like, have you ever worried about
Well,
that?
I'd be in the same boat as Diageo, Pernod Ricard. I mean, that's where our contract takes us in three and a
Hmm.
half years. It takes us to 35,000 barrels a year.
Hmm.
So I don't know why they would not want to have that guaranteed as a publicly traded company.
Right.
I do not know why they wouldn't want to have that, to have a brand like us where, hey, here's our quarterly POs, and this is what we're doing, here are our projections, and
Hmm.
you know and deal with one customer versus a whole. I could see a day where they don't sell somebody 200 barrels a year anymore,
Right.
but I think the long-term plan would be, I mean,
It would be a huge shift. It's just, and it's one of those thoughts that, in my business occasionally I'll, wake up in the middle of the night with this, like this just horrible thought, like, what if the business did this thing and it just completely destroyed my ability to, whatever. Like, I think about those things sometimes, and that's sort of that same kind of thought, I think.
yeah, yeah, I mean, when we were smaller, I had those thoughts, but
Mhm.
now and I have a direct relationship with Kansas now. I talk to everybody in Kansas for the most
Mhm.
part. I still do with my sales rep occasionally, um, from Indiana, but but yeah, we thought about that, and then when there was the merger with Luxco, then it was like, okay, well, no one's going to buy them out now, because that was always a fear. Like, what if somebody wants to
Right.
come in and buy them out? And so now that's not going to happen. So yeah, at
It's a
least
safe
not for
place to be for a while.
at least the next 3.5 years, and
Right.
that and then who? I think it's going to be a completely different environment in 3.5 years. I don't think. I think there's going to be a few brands standing. I don't think there's going to be this flooded,
Do you think
saturated
we're
market.
on the edge of a bourbon? I don't want to say collapse, but
Not a bourbon
reset.
collapse, but a premium collapse. Sort of the way premium vodka collapse. People are still buying Smirnoff. Tito's is doing crazy numbers. All that's sort of, when you look at Tito's. I mean, that was that for me, being in the bar business at that time. I mean, look, in 2007, when I opened I was 5 years into the bar business in 2007. 3/4 of my glasses were martini glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was drinking vodka cocktails. Everybody wanted Grey Goose. Everybody wanted Chopin. Everybody wanted to flex, pretend like they had money. And then all of a sudden, the housing market collapsed. Everybody was broke. It was no longer cool to flex and pretend like you have money. And everything took a shit. And then there was Tito's, a perceived craft brand at an affordable price. And that's what everybody wanted, because it was cheap and it was not like Smirnoff or something that it was perceived as being, its story is all, I mean, that's why it's called Tito's handmade vodka. As a retailer, I could tell you, all of a sudden, like, you got to put handmade on this, you got to put handmade on that, because that's how they won the lawsuit, that it wasn't Tito's handmade. It was called Tito's handmade vodka. That was their fanciful name, and it had no meaning.
Right.
And but I mean, it's still good. I drank it. It's not. It's like, it's unfortunate.
There's some downstairs right now. Like,
yeah, I mean,
we'll keep it around.
The story is the story, but it tasted good, and he did win a double gold at San Francisco, and I drank it. And
but you don't drink it anymore because you drink Silver Dollar vodka. Right?
I drink Silver Dollar so much better.
Yeah. So
it's funny because I just had some when I was in Colorado, and I was like, damn, this is good. This is why I can't. And then I was like, okay, that's why I don't drink vodka anymore. I was like, gone. Okay, let's go back to let's go back to bourbon. And
so and vodka's a hard shift there, but I think you have the ability to sell.
Oh, there's bourbon cheaper. Is in the comments. What's going on, dude? How you doing?
Yeah, Matt. I love Matt. He's a super dude. Yeah, he said we got matching. Actually, no, Matt, we don't have matching mics. Aaron has a significantly better microphone than mine. We have matching arms to the microphone.
Oh,
that's where my budget let me get the arm, but not the microphone. And I didn't ask this from the beginning. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Chepanik.
Chepanik. Okay, that's what I thought. But I always,
you're one of the all the Florida Chepaniks say it's Chepnik.
Okay,
they're crazy.
I try to avoid it altogether. I had a guy from Bespoken Spirits on here once, and he's got an Eastern European last name. I was like, I'm not even gonna try. We'll just stick with your first name. That's what we're gonna do.
Mine's like Ellis Island last name. Everybody knows it's Russian, but everybody knows it's Russian. It's like, it's not a real. It's just
they just put some letters together, and this is what
they just put some. They didn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah, Cyrillic. They were like, you could write it in Russian, and it's Cyrillic, and we don't know what these characters are because maybe I'm from France or Spain or wherever. So in your Silver Dollar vodka bottles, you have a recreation of a Silver Dollar, right?
Here's one I made earlier.
So yeah, that's a process, right? That's like a huge process to get that there.
Yes, I had to design the bottle myself because I was told you could not have a piece of metal in the round bottle. So I had to build this on the computer and show them that if you recessed it a certain amount and then did these bumpers, that it would not be a contact on the assembly line. And then that's when I put in all the desert sage and everything and really started getting the details down. And then we had to get permission from United States Treasury to trademark the replica of the Morgan Silver Dollar because it was public domain. And so it's pretty cool. And it's funny because now
had to get permission. You had to get permission from them to do it.
Oh, from the United States Treasury, yeah.
Was that like a whole thing, or was it like a far easier than you thought it was going to be whenever you started after?
I just paid an attorney, so for me, it was a very it was an easy process.
Here's your money. Tell me when you're done. Very much.
Yeah.
It's like putting a hit out on somebody. It's like here's
I don't think it was that tough for him. I just think it was I think they inquired and they said yes, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's why it says it's cool because it worked out for the batch stickers, but the whole thing used to have sage, but I removed it so you could read copy, and then now that's where the batch stickers go. But yeah, it was all for the vodka. Vodka was first. Thank God I ended up doing bourbon.
Right, and then you keep a similar bottle design. The emblazoned bottles. What I was getting to is that you could sit on a shelf next to a dozen other bottles, and there's a handful that might compete with you for the purchaser's attention.
Yeah,
just because of the bottle design. May not know shit about whiskey, but you put it and a handful of other bottles next to each other, and those are the only ones that compete.
well,
you stick this next to a bottle of anything else on the shelf, just standard. Most of what's up here, people can be like, "Oh, this is interesting. I'll buy this."
Yeah, I mean, it's like there you have to have the personality where they say you can't do it, and they say yes, I can. And I'll go do it. I'll go figure it out. I'll go learn how to do this, and then yeah, I mean, man, it was like took a long time. It was like I just sat at the computer for days, just working on it, and then coming from the bar business, it's always hard to say, right? Because I knew coming from the bar business, I was like, we got to have a nice package, because all these craft brands, when craft stuff blew up, probably in like 2008. 2009, that's when we really started seeing like Hudson and things like that, and then also smaller guys, and they would bring their stuff to me, and I was like, what do you want me to do with this? You want me to put this on the back bar? Like your price
it looked like well bourbon, but it's supposed to be back bar.
Yeah, and because of the price point, they're like, well, we're
right.
craft, we created this. I'm like, nobody gives a shit.
Right.
Nobody cares.
It's like it's an excuse to phone it in when it comes to the final design. But they've likely spent all of their money on the front end. They get to the end of like, oh shit, we got to put this in some glass and put a label on it. We're out of money.
Yeah, and also they're like, what does the packaging matter? It's the contents that we've created for you. We've blessed you with this. I'm like, dude, what do you want to happen on a busy night? You want my bartender to like explain, and then somebody's gonna they're holding this bottle in your hand, they're looking at it, and it's alcohol, and they have to ask themselves the question, do I trust this contents?
Right.
And if it's a shitty bottle, the answer is no.
If it looks like somebody hand wrote it on there. And
Yeah,
there's a specific brand I'm thinking about. This is a celebrity brand where they've got like what looks like handwriting on the bottle itself. If I did not know this is a celebrity brand, I would feel like I was going to get roofied. Like whatever's in here, and nobody's trying to roofie me. Like I understand that. Like,
just
nobody's
the right
like
enough,
that guy.
just a legal enough amount of acetone and methanol.
Right? Yeah, I may go blind from it or whatever. And some of those craft distillers are right. There is a subset of purchasers that don't care about the packaging whatsoever. But if that's who you're going after, you're probably not going to be profitable. Because there's like 9 of us and we have a meeting,
Well, yeah. I mean, if that's who you're going after, you better have tours, and you just better, have a thing where you're making money off cocktails and a few bottles that you sell in your place. And for us, our goals were always lofty. We always want to be a national brand, and be perceived that way, like from the packaging. Like,
yep. So you guys have been expanding you've expanded your sales pretty rapidly. But you're also expanding a physical location. So you have a new physical location, and there's an intent to eventually have people there, or are you guys already open to people coming?
Oh God, I wish we were open. I wish it was built. I'm still waiting on permits. Oh my God, man, I'll tell you, it's taking forever. But yeah, we bought 4.5 acres. I don't even know when now. It was a very long time ago.
It feels like it was at least a year ago, right?
Oh,
maybe
easily.
A year and some change.
Yeah, definitely. And well, I guess it couldn't have been too long ago, because I wasn't working on that deal 2.5 years. Yeah, so maybe it's been maybe it just seems like it's taken forever.
Right.
But
everything always does, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, no, it was December. It's been a year and a half.
Okay.
Because we had to pay it off before the end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a year to do that. So yeah, it's 4.5 acres, man. It's right near the stratosphere. Yes, we have tours. No, we won't be able to sell retail sales, but once we move in, we'll start lobbying to make that happen.
Hmm.
And but we will have a tasting room right away, and then it'll be multi-phase. Like we just got to get in there and get out of the space we're renting and have more space because we have no
Hmm.
space right now.
Yeah.
And then we'll start developing the 4.5 acres, and I really think that it'll be something special.
That's the so I've never been to Vegas, but that's the reason that I will eventually go when you guys get a physical location. I'm like, hey, now I have a ton of other reasons I could go, but it never makes the top list because I have small children, and so Disney makes the top list or the beach makes the top list or wherever, and Vegas never makes it there. But when this
Sorry,
opens,
I see bourbon cheaper. You're 100. I think you need to cut that 110 plus category in half, from what I've been seeing. Anything over like 60 is starting to take a fall off a cliff. Is what I've been seeing.
that'll be that that'll be an interesting cut. So I'm putting them a premium collapse, and you're saying Matt and his representation with Penelope is saying 110, and I'm going to grade you guys against each other in 3 years.
Well, I
I
can
will
tell you
set a
right
reminder on my
now,
damn phone. Uh,
poor small batch was always the like redheaded stepchild, and now because of its price point, the
mhm,
demand has just surged. And I was already ready for it. I mean, straight. I was obsessed with having straight established as soon as possible because I saw this coming 5 years ago, and then uncut the younger. That took longer to get out than I wanted, and we're still in our old space, so we can't bottle it. But I was like, we need to get this out. And even when people like saw the colas and everything, they're like, "Oh, is this what it's come to?" I'm like, "Why don't you tell me another?" I can't really talk pricing, but
right.
uh, eh, it's supposed where it's supposed to be is like the low 40s.
Mhm,
There is no cast strength bourbon in the low 40s right now. It doesn't exist. And so when people were like, why are you doing this? I'm like, well, because I think people acquired a taste for high proof bourbon, and all of a sudden they're not going to be able to afford it, or it's going to be a pain in the ass because not
mhm,
everybody's sitting around working remotely anymore or at home how they
mhm.
out for like 2 years, and they're driving, and gas is expensive, and which means that's what I learned, like everything goes up. It's like it's not just the gas in your passenger car, it's the gas in the truck taking the thing, and it's the energy being used, and it's all the stuff. So
Yep.
all the cost of goods go up, and all of a sudden, and people don't have as much money as they used to. And and so it's like, so I just felt like, hey, let's do an affordable daily cast strength bourbon. And, I'm totally happy. I think it's amazing,
So
especially.
that uncut the younger is like so it was surprising. It was one of those where when it comes out, I'm not in the mind of Aaron, right?
Well,
Um,
it's good you missed the first month. The first month was not what I wanted it to be. I had to learn some
was it not what you
lessons.
want it to be, or was it bad? Because those are two different things. Like it can still be good and not where you want it to be.
It was good, but it
Because
was not.
everybody I talked to who was like, "Yeah, I've had it and it's great," right? That's where
Yeah.
it
Well, the
largely landed.
irony is it was a little oaky, right? And
Hmm.
so for where I wanted that to be, like, yeah, I wanted to be an accessible cast strength bourbon. So
Hmm.
oak is not accessible to everybody. Some people are
Right.
very
You're
tannin sensitive.
you're right there. I'm the if you were to bottle up just like wood water, I'd probably drink it, right? Like I come from a long line of woodworkers and home builders, and so sawdust sort of flows through our veins here. Whenever I was in college and people started getting into wine, I was like, "What's the driest, woodiest thing you can?" Somebody comes up with like
Right.
Chianti. They're like, "Hey, drink this." I'm like, "This is delicious. It tastes bitter and woody and hateful like me." It's where I wanted to be. So you think the collapse of premier bourbons is more along the lines of a recession than it is just the market shifting and people saying, I'm not going to spend premium money on whiskey anymore. I'm shifting to another spirit category.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't see them. I don't, not another premium. I mean, that, you look at 2008, 2009, nobody really went to another premium category.
Hmm.
They started drinking gin, for cocktails. That was the whole thing. Like that was sort of even more collapse of bourbon. It's like all those mixology places open up, like Mother's Milk and PDT in New York and all those places.
Yep.
And everybody was doing mixology, and they're like, vodka is not good. You should only make cocktails with gin. I'm like, you mean vodka with botanicals? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you know, and so, but I mean, maybe like Hendrix and some of that stuff got a little, but it was nothing like the premium vodka market where
Right.
like people were just spending money. And I think that, and I do think there's some degree of that in bourbon where people were buying stuff and they didn't even know if they liked it. They're just
Hmm.
buying it to take a picture of it and put it on Instagram. Well, Instagram exposure is in the toilet. And
And they're starting to crack down on spirits as well. Like they're
oh
not as
yeah,
okay with spirits being around on Instagram. And you know, I have a ton of bottles, but usually when I go to a liquor store and I buy something, the first thing I do is pull the plastic off of it and pour something out for the guy working behind
right.
the counter, whoever happens to be there, because there's nothing that's ever, you know, like there's going to be a picture of it eventually. Like it's going to eventually happen. But Aaron and Bottled and Bond talk.
Oh yeah, the bottle and bond ride. Oh,
Yep.
oh,
So
look, I have all these things in reach. This is what he's talking about. The bottle and
it's
bond ride.
it's almost like you were prepared for this. And
I
so
wasn't. My desk is just a cluttered mess. I'd like to say it was because I was prepared. This is here from when I did the video the other day. I don't even know
see,
why the
but
vodka's
you were
on my desk.
prepared. You have the
Yeah,
place where you shoot the thing, and so the things are
yeah,
handy. There's a ton. So you know, I go on to Instagram. I go to Coming Whiskey. I see labels as they come across. And so you see, you know, the things that are going to come maybe 3 to 6 months down the road. And so you got into to rye. You got a bottle and
yeah.
bond rye
Bought the
specifically
rise a long time ago. It just took forever to
to
get
get them there.
just to get everything together. It's just
Mhm.
everything's a pain, you know. It just takes.
Are you saying maybe like getting stuff through TTB and getting into
Oh no.
glass? And,
Well, there have been TTB issues.
Mhm.
That was the irony of the first rare and limiteds,
Mhm.
where it took so long that I the whole thing about rare and limited, and the reason I haven't really done one in a while that required creativity is because it was supposed to be this fun thing where I put stuff out and people drank it, you
Mhm.
know. It wasn't Beanie Babies. It wasn't like, here's a bottle, cool, I'm gonna buy it and like hold on to it. And so, you know, because when I create these things, I'm sorry, but there's no money in those rare things.
Mhm.
You know, and that even like when I will get to the end of that story, I swear. But even like when the Only Five here came out, I bought that March 2020. So it took forever to get our cola approval because the uh the what do you call it? The specialist I was dealing with said that Beavimus moriendum was false advertising because I was telling people they had to drink or they're going to die. Yeah.
Is that for
So
real? Is that like that's a thing a real person said out loud?
yeah, so I was talking to my guy that I deal with for the liquor bottle for the bottles, and he used to work at Seagram's forever. And
Mhm.
he said, well, Seagram's was huge. So when we had that problem, we just go in there and pull the paperwork and give it to somebody else. I was like, I'll just let it expire. So I didn't
Mhm.
respond to his comments for 30 days, and it expired, and I resubmitted it, and within a day it was approved.
Just a different
And
person's
just a
opinion, and
different
that's all it
person,
took.
yeah. Yeah. And
That's
yeah, man. So the irony of that was like, and it's great because it could come out any time of the year. It doesn't have to come out during December when all the rare and allocated stuff comes out. And then it came out in December
who
because
the
that
fuck
took.
can read Latin though?
You have to tell them what it means. Any
Oh, okay, you have to spell it. Okay, but I'm saying like it's not spelled out on the bottle though, right?
no, just as Beavis more in a mess.
What's
But when
it
you
like,
submit your stuff,
when
you
you
have to
submit it
say
to
what.
TTB? But I'm saying like when it goes onto the shelf to the average American, like who's like, oh, I can read this. They know what it means, right? Like that's
Yeah,
I
it
don't know.
means you.
That's
I'll tell
Matt.
you what it doesn't mean. It does not mean if you don't drink this, you'll die.
I mean, if you don't drink it, you'll die. That is true. But if you
That
do
is
drink it, you'll
true.
die as well
Yeah.
because you're
Well,
going to
that's the
die.
whole
So
thing is drink it
technically, it's
because you're
true.
gonna die. So
Technically, it is true.
celebrate life because it's not around forever.
Right. Yes. The original YOLO that exists. Matt Bourbon Jeeper Matt did say he didn't get his FedEx notification for his media sample, and I'm assuming he's talking about the rye.
Oh,
So that's that.
oh yeah. Well,
He needs
we
he
had
just making
that,
sure
but then he went and worked for
some.
another company.
That's what
He
happens
had
when
he
you
had
work for a competitor, right?
yeah. You can't no more samples for him.
Tell you what, just forward his samples to me. We'll be fine. I won't share them with him.
I just drink them all.
Yeah. So, um, where were we? The rye. So we were talking about rye. Like the rye is out there. It's out there in the
We've
marketplace.
started shipping it. I doubt it's in a store right now. I mean, but yes, we've been bottling it and shipping it. It's pretty cool. So the reason that this one I could do a bottle and bond is because this 51 rye, 49% corn mash bill is discontinued.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, yeah, there's some out there now, but it's part of our contract, and there are not a lot of contracts got approved.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is part of our contract. So it's proprietary in nature. So I was like, hey, we can do bottle and bond. I don't have to blend it to taste different because it will be different no matter what. And then another thing, like it's funny because like when I did it, people were like, what's the age statement? It's like, don't you want to know how it tastes? You want to know the age
Right.
statement? It's not going to have an age statement because right now it's probably I think it's 6 year because I bought it when it was 4 year like 2 years ago, but it's off like the second or third floor. I like young ryes. I do not like old ryes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know which mash bill it was. Tim, it's been people who are watching in the comments. Yeah. Tim asked if it was a certain mash bill, and I don't know. I know it's been around forever. It was just like a traditional rye mash bill that has been around since the 30s.
Did you say 51% rye? Is that what you said?
49 corn. They call it their traditional rye mash bill. It's one of the oldest ones they had because the 95 rye was newer. That was developed to blend for Seagram 7 when they stopped using light whiskey for Seagram 7 and started using more neutral grain spirit. They wanted a blender that had more flavor per volume, and so that's when they created the 95 rye. So that was not around since the 30s. But
5149 is like way friendly to Kentucky folks, right? Because we're already
I love
used
it,
to
man. Yeah, I like the combination of the two. I mean, so the thing is, so now it's 6 year off like I think it's second or third floor, but I don't have I am very fortunate that I am allowed to specify side filled racked. Most people don't get to do that with MGP. It goes where it goes, but even then it goes where it goes, and so it's like I don't know what it's going to be throughout the years, and it's I can't blend it to taste a certain way, and so because bottle and bond, so it has to be single season. So it could be 4 year off the 6th floor and it's going to taste the same, or it could be 5 year off the 4th floor, or you know what I mean? It's like it's like when people like say age statements, that's secondary to warehouse location. Warehouse location dictates everything. I can give you 6 year that tastes like it was distilled yesterday, and I can give you 4 year that's almost over oaked, depending on warehouse location. I mean, that's like all the super old stuff is not aged like normally in the heart of a warehouse.
Right.
It's like put in the basement, or I guess now they're putting stuff in a giant walk-in refrigerator so they can have super old bourbon. It's like
right. Or you can build a aging warehouse into the side of a hill and excavate out all of the, that's what Makers did for their 46. They've got a nice.
Oh yeah, that's what I'd have to do here.
Aging.
I have to go like where the water table is super low and dirt would be all wet and everything. But I think where the water table is low, you're taking water from Mojave, so I don't think I think it'd be frowned on.
So how do you, so you've developed a handful of new ideas for the brand. Like, how do you go about doing that, or do they come to you and like, hey, here's the thing we've got, would you like to buy it?
No, I just think about it. It just comes to me, and then I go to see what's available. I mean, I've never asked them to create a mash bill for me yet. Maybe down the road, but I like ryes. I thought it was like a good fit since we do high rye bourbon. I'll tell you one thing: we are coming out with a cask strength the 49% malted rye, 49% malted barley, 51 rye. Man, if that mash bill existed in 2012, I don't know. I don't know if there'd be a smoke. I guess there would be a Smokewagon bourbon because it's very expensive. It's the most expensive mash bill they have by far, like almost double of everything else. But
I want to ask that again. You said 49% malted barley and 51% rye.
yeah. So that was the mash bill for the experimental stuff, which I didn't even know was experimental. I just thought it was when I bought it, it was 8 years old, and I let it age for another year. When I bought that, I just thought it was old malted rye. And I was like, I gotta have those. And they're like, you gotta pay. I was like, okay. And then I saw they were when they showed up, they had all these paperwork stapled to the side of the barrel. I was like, oh man, what are these? And then I was like, okay, it's cool. But we paid a lot for them because they're super double extra rare. Oh, thoughts on weeded? I'm not a big weeded fan, so I really can't do anything that I don't like, And I think we're kind of getting to where I want to be. I might do another rye, we'll see, but the 4 core expressions every now and then doing rare and limited when it becomes fun again, and 2 to 3 ryes. I think that's good, for our size and the volume we have to do and everything. I think it's we can keep the quality control, we can keep it consistent, and that's kind of like where I'm at, and I'm never gonna like chase after anything. I'm just gonna and it's like we have our look, everything. The nice thing is it's like everything could stay the same and I'd be happy. We could not grow. All we got to do is pay off this stupid building and recover from the times where we unfortunately had to buy aged juice to fill holes in inventory and like sort of overpay. And the thing is like even when we overpaid, I never changed the pricing. We were just like, let's just eat it. Because again, I wanted all the affordable stuff to be established as affordable, So there was like probably 8 months where like we didn't really make any money on straight, and because it was like there was we really didn't make money on small batch and uncut. I had to change because the bottle pricing went up, and now we're in a new excise tax bracket with the federal government because we're no longer under the Craft Modernization Act, where you pay like $2 a proof gallon. Now we pay $13.20 a proof gallon. Gotcha. That's a big jump. That's two
to 13 is pretty significant per proof gallon.
So like give me an example. A bottle of uncut, it went from being like 50 cents in tax to like $2.40 in tax per bottle. So that's why I changed those. Now small straight and uncut the younger, because they were newer, I figured out how to get the pricing where I want it to be, considering the new tax. In 2016, I never thought we'd ever get to that level.
So you're saying you grew faster than you expected that you would grow?
Oh my God, yeah, man. I mean, thank you, Tim, for the compliments. Yeah, that all happened so fast, and that was the thing. Like people are like, when are you going to go to a new state? When are you going to another state? And we got in all these states at once over a course of probably 6 months.
But then you've got the X and such amount of juice to spread over all the new states that you just got into.
You get into these states and it's like, except for maybe Texas might have been higher expectations. We didn't know. But you go into these states and they're like, what are your expectations? I'm like, I don't really have any. It's chill. It's cool. Whatever. Oh, but again, sorry, talking about all that other stuff and eating it. Once we'll recover from all of this in probably like 5 or 6 months, and then it'll be June, and we'll have 5,000 barrels turn 4 years, and then the next month it's another 600, and it's like that for a year, and then it's 800, and then it's 1,200 every month, and it's just but there's no pressure to grow. Like even when we did this contract, I was talking to my business partner. I was like, yeah, it's exciting, it's fun to think about like building this big brand, but we don't have to. There's no pressure. There's no investors. If we do what we're doing now, once we get through this, there'll be so much, plenty of money for everybody, and it's fun and it's cool. And, so when I look at like adding things, there's no, the only motivation is for me creatively. And so if it's something I want to, so I really wanted to do a rye because I like
Mhm.
ryes. And so anything I do is like, yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah,
And
and that's, I
long-winded
mean,
answer.
it's a good place. It's an absolutely good place to be where you don't have the need to grow, and like increasing your price to adjust for momentary cost. It puts you in a position where it's really tough to decrease once you've increased, right? Because
Yes.
then the
Yeah.
question is like, okay, well, why are they cutting the price back down? And you could tell people until you're blue in the face that we're cutting it back down because it was only a temporary increase. And they're
Yeah,
like,
well,
oh no, they're probably doing something else though.
especially when your whole goal of that product is to establish it as
Right.
affordable in preparation for needing to have affordable
Whiskey.
products,
Yep.
yeah. And even when I did it, like even when I did it, I wasn't like, we need to do this because everything uncut the younger. I kind of was like, we got to do this. Like when I thought about it a couple years ago, I was like, we kind of have to do this. This is really going to help solidify the brand and give people something special and affordable. And that's always kind of like, and straight was always that. Straight was like, hey, everyone's like, what are you going to do next? You're going to do super double extra quadruple premium. You're going to do finished in this and then put on a ship and then put on a train and then go around the moon and come back, aged
Space
bourbon,
bourbon. No, space
space
bourbon is the
bourbon.
next
It
frontier.
is
It's
space
got to be,
bourbon.
because you need to get a hold of Elon Musk and be like, "Hey, I need to send some bourbon to space because
Space.
we've got tractor trailers, we've got
Uh,
boats, we've got
yeah.
trains, we got river barges now. We got ocean liners. We got to go into outer space. That's what's next."
Yeah. So I was just like, man, everything's getting weirder and less accessible.
Hmm.
And I just want to do a superior, like entry level daily bourbon that's like,
Hmm.
it's not chill filtered. So keep it over 92 proof. So it won't really flock. Use the same mash bill, which is expensive mash bill, and everyone's like, you were fucking crazy. Nobody wants that. And I was like, we'll
But you're not
see.
though, like, because there's another brand out there, and I'm not going to say any other brands' names, but their original intent was, can we get between 1% and 5% of the market share from Basil Hayden? Because
Oh,
Basil Hayden has a huge market share because it's inexpensive and it's approachable. If
right.
you, as a company, as a small brand, could capture between 1% and 5% of their sales.
See, I never think that way. I just think like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we gave people this? I think they'd like it,
Right. But the idea is that you're coming in at a, not necessarily an entry price, but an affordable price, and you're
Right.
trying to beat the quality that's already there. You're competing in a marketplace where there is a ton of sales to pick up, and if you can just do it better, there's a
Yeah.
lot of money to be made there.
Yeah. And, and look, there's people that drink straight and they don't know who I am. And I know that for a
Right.
fact because they live in states and I have friends or people that I kind of know from the I used to know a lot more people when I was in the bar all the time. I don't know
Hmm.
as many people anymore. But they'll be like at somebody's house visiting and be like, "Oh, you a Smokewagon? I know Aaron." They're like, "Who's Aaron?" Like, Aaron, Smokewagon guy. Like, I don't
Right.
know who that is. I was at a liquor store and they're giving samples and I liked it and I liked the price. So it's my go-to. This is my bourbon I buy every week,
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
even
what I
better though.
want.
That's
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 what I
amazing.
want. Yeah. And so that's the thing. Like when people are like, oh, when did you know you made it? Was it when a bottle sold for this or this happened? I
Mhm.
was like, when straight became allocated, man, that's when I knew we made it. That's when I
Mhm.
knew we were real. Private barrel picks, even uncut to some degree because of the batch stickers, none of that is real. What's real is having these core expressions that effortlessly sell, and
Mhm.
there's no hype. Like even Uncut the Younger had some hype, and people are taking pictures of it when they got it. But man, it's like I shouldn't say nobody. Yeah, some people are taking pictures of straight, but it's not. It's always like, hey, join my favorite go-to daily sipper,
Right.
or it's not like, check this shit out, motherfucker. It's not a fuck you bottle.
I mean,
And
it is around here because you're still not seeing it, right? Like, there's not a
uh,
ton here, but I understand the sentiment because I'm
we
also in like
send a
super
lot
rural
there. I
Kentucky.
mean, that's the thing. When I was talking to the distributor, and I was like, this is what I have for you every month. We can peel
Mhm.
this off. and that's it. And he was like, that's a lot. I'm like, I was like, look, Kentucky might be the one state where that's a lot, but I'm telling you, it's not going to be a lot. I was like,
It,
because all these grocery store chains want us national. Walmart wants us national, which means Sam's Club. We got into Sam's Club, so Costco wants us national. Like Kroger wants. I was like, it's not going to be enough. I was like,
mhm,
he's like, can I tell people I'm getting it? I was like, you don't want to, because it's going to make your life difficult. Just I was like, I could, because he was, they distribute like Uncle Nearest. He's like, well, Uncle Nearest, like we do this, and I was like, dude, I do more than that in a month in
right.
like state, like, and that's the thing too. And I'm not really, I'm not bragging. I don't want to come across like boo boo. This is what we do, but it's like when people are always like, "Hey, has anybody offered you to buy it out?" I'm like, no, because they don't. Nobody gets it.
Hmm.
We're only in 13 states, and you can't get it. So they look at it like we're just some like small cult following brand, and they don't understand like how much we ship to these states. It's insane,
Hmm.
especially Texas. Texas is insatiable,
Right.
and
Well, I
even
mean,
like
and the bottle's going to fit their motif through and through. I mean, you got cross guns,
oh yeah,
you got flowers, you got emblem. Like it, there is a Texas spirit, and I appreciate it. My mother's family's from south of San Antonio. Like there's a Texas vibe to this through and through. There
yeah.
is, and so I get it. And
Well,
I
I
know
think a
your
lot. I
hat
mean,
helps
even
sell it too.
Kentucky, it's goes the vibe of Kentucky for the most part, like anywhere. And
We're not as bold. We're a little less bold than Texas is. So you mentioned being bought out. Do you have a price? Like if somebody showed up at your door right now and said, "I want to buy Smokewagon. I want to buy."
no,
You don't
it,
have
it,
like a number in your head like this is it, and if you meet this,
no,
I'll walk away happily.
no, because what am I gonna do? You
You
know,
have to start up a new brand after that.
yeah, start something new. I don't want to do. I'm too old, man. This is like I've done so many things. I can't do it. It's not like when I did my first business.
Hmm.
I was 28. I was 28, and I was like, I would rather be broke and doing my own thing than working for
Hmm.
these assholes. And and by the way, I try not to be one of these assholes, so that people working for me are very happy.
Right.
I understand like
It
what
goes
it's
a long
like.
way.
Yeah, and I try to reward them as much as I can, financially
Hmm.
and with benefits. And I was broke, but man, I had fire. I was like, I worked so hard. And when I opened my first bar, I blew, I did investment after investment, and I put all my money into the first bar, and I built it. I physically built it
Hmm.
because there wasn't enough money. Like one of the guys working on it, I realized he didn't know what he was doing. And I was like, I just got to go buy tools and build it, because I knew how to build fake. I didn't know how to frame or make it so it didn't fall down and kill anybody. But I did construction in the film business, so I knew how to make it look cool. So
Right.
one guy, Chase, who I hired, he made sure nobody died, and I made it look cool. Except for the stone. We hired stone masons to do all the stone because
That's
I
an
don't.
art form in and of itself. I'm
Yeah,
the make it where nobody dies part. I'm not the finish it and make it look good part. My
yeah.
my wife's family are all like woodworkers, and they like make fine woodworking. I'm like, I'll build the structure, you make it look pretty.
But
This is how this relationship
yeah,
works.
but man, I'll tell you, like the timing, I was done. Like when I would bottle like all night. I would bottle till like 1 or 2 in the morning. I'd either deal with the bar or go out and do tastings and go to accounts during the day. And I just like, the one thing that was like kind of like the paperwork and everything. That's like people are like, hey, I have this bottle, and the ABV is not quite the same. Like, yeah, that was like probably 2017 when I was doing everything, and I like, I was only bottling in like little tiny Latina tank, so we do like 44 cases of uncut, and I probably did like a pallet and a half, and like combined them all into one run to report to the federal government. So
Hmm.
so sorry, I had no idea that that in 5 years people would be trying to find every batch. You know what I mean? And but I just remember sitting there like going, I went to pick up a pallet, not a pallet, but a case off a pallet, and I was like, I am done. I can't do this anymore. And then it's boom. Like I started hiring people, and it blew up. It was
I knew
crazy.
that the uncut unfiltered was hitting a stride whenever everybody started clamoring for having batch numbers on the back of the bottles, and then you guys had to go on your website and be like, all right, here's the first whatever was it,
Oh,
26 batches that didn't have a label on them, because that
my
wasn't a thought.
employees did that, and oh, God bless them, man. That was like a giant pain in the ass
Yeah,
to
because
go through
that was
all the
my
federal
first
reporting.
uncut unfiltered was an unlabeled one. So I
Yeah.
burned through that bottle, and then the second round I was like, oh well, it's we're batched up now, and then I found it on the website. I'm like, all right, they're hitting that run of people are after what they perceive to be limited, and you
Oh,
mentioned that
God,
earlier.
we've got Tim's question up here. We never
It's
answered
been
it.
up here forever. It'll
Tim,
stick.
he's
He's not
probably
going anywhere
gone.
yet.
He's probably like, man, fuck
Nah,
those
he's still
guys.
here. Tim's a glutton for punishment. He'll come in and make sure that the bots that are
Tim,
trying to like
the
sell
only
sex
thing that works
websites go
for
away.
casinos is what you give them for free. That's what they want. Free.
So it's got to be free. So what you're saying is there's no casino collaboration that's going to happen.
No, I shouldn't say that, because like independents like Palazzo Venetian,
Mm-hmm.
Cosmo, to some degree MGM, but you'll never Caesars is like totally corporate compliant. By the way, corporate compliant means you have to comply with their profit margin, which means free.
Gotcha.
You get it for free.
See, I
And
told you he didn't leave. He's still here. He's still hanging out. Tim will hang out forever.
So yeah, that was the irony of everything. Is like we're gonna open in Las Vegas and get in the casinos, and it's gonna be awesome. And it's still like this market is still generated by tourists. More tourists know about the brand than locals, And I'll always tell the story where last I don't even remember when it was, but I was in Chicago and we'd go to restaurants, and waiters knew who I was. And then here I came back and I was like all on this high. I'm like, yeah, man, it's just blowing up. And I went, I go to Stitched in Cosmo to get Sammy invited me to get a sport coat, and then because he probably knew my personality, then I get addicted having made it there. But so I was like, oh, I'm gonna stop by Vesper, the lobby bar, because they carry it, and I'd be like, hey, can you get a Smokewagon? And the guy's like, I don't know if I have that. Let me look. He's like, oh, Las Vegas is local. Like, yeah. He's like, is it any good? I was like, I think it's good, but I make it. It's all biased. He's like, oh, cool. Well, good luck. It's hard to get in bourbon.
Like, do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal. You don't want to
I was
do
like,
that, but
I was like, thanks, cool, all right, I'll go home now.
so you tagged it there. You said you got a jacket, and you think they were trying to hook you because they know that you're going to have them made. And so you've got this hat.
Oh, they know, yeah, because
You got this beautiful hat. You have an attachment to certain things that you like to just like really kind of expand on. So, do you have to be certified to wear a hat like that? Like, do you have to have some sort of a credential? Because, like, I love it, but I also don't think that I have what it takes to wear one. Right?
You just got to do it, man. I don't. That was the funny thing is, when I was younger, I didn't have the balls to wear them all the time. So I've always worn hats. The thing that stopped me from wearing hats, and it's funny because I had really crazy. I mean, if you follow my personal Instagram, you see me without a hat. It's not like I'm bald, but not that there's anything wrong with being bald. You have a beautifully shaped head.
No, I don't. It's lumpy as hell. You don't have to sell me on anything. I know what my head is. It's fine.
But in 2017, I got superbug bacterial resistant sepsis. It was septic for like 2 days, and they at the end, they don't tell you what's going on until the end of it, and they're like, we can't believe you live. Nobody ever lives. I was like, cool, thanks. And so
we thought you were gonna die for like 10 hours. We just didn't tell you.
Yeah, well, no, for 2 days they thought I was gonna die, because you've got 6 to 20 hours, and I had superbug bacteria in my blood for 2 days. So because none of the antibiotics were working, I remember my girlfriend at the time, I told her I had a superbug, and she said, you think you're so special that just because you're in the hospital that you've got a special infection. I was like, I've been in the hospital.
That was your girlfriend at the time. I like you phrased that. My girlfriend at the time. That's not
Oh no, I
obviously
can't
not a
talk.
keeper at that point.
No, we had differences, but she was awesome. If it wasn't for her, I don't even know if I would have gone to the hospital because she drove me.
Right.
And but anyhow, so I used to wear these Borsalino fedoras and the Borsalino like the paperboy style hats. And then before that I wore vintage Stetsons that were like kind of like a fedora, but they were like that hybrid of fedora western hat. And that was when I drove trucks and when I did construction and when I opened my store. And I was always in overalls and work boots and western plaid shirts. I wore western shirts because I would always lose buttons on regular shirts. And now my father always wore cowboy boots and always he was from Jacksonville, Florida. He still is from Jacksonville, Florida, and he had horses growing up because back then that's what it
It's a
was.
thing. Yeah.
And and so growing up in the Northeast, I was like, Dad, why you gotta wear cowboy boots? Why I always have to wear hats? Nobody does that up here. And he's like, because they're comfortable. And I was like, okay. And so when I opened my first bar, I was like, I'm not getting dirty all the time for a living. I'm gonna try to be fashionable. And one of the businesses that I had before the bars, I bought this piece of like kind of crappy real estate, and that was where I rented a space to Flea, where he did his music school, and Vice back when they were actually relevant and cool, and they had a retail space. And so I started buying stuff there, and I tried to be fashionable. And so instead of wearing like these vintage for Stetson hats, I started wearing like Borsalino fedoras and stuff. And then all the douchebags started wearing fedoras, so there's no more fedoras. And then my hair started turning gray, and I was like, man, I can't dress like this. I feel like I'm too youthful, you know. And I know, and also because of the Vice LA store, they had all the Adidas reissues, like the vintage reissues. So I had all these crazy sneakers and everything. And I was like, man. So I was talking to my dad. I said, Dad, I don't want to wear sneakers anymore. I'm done. But I'm like looking at, I want a pair of snakeskin boots, but everything I'm looking at is just, I'm not feeling it. And he said, son, you know what you have to do? You have to get a pair of cowboy boots. They go good with dungarees. They could go with slacks, and they go with trousers. I was like, what's the difference between slacks and trousers? You got to explain that one to me, but okay. And he was right, man. I got a pair of cowboy boots and it changed I got a good pair. I didn't get shitty ones. I got a pair of like blackjacks. That's when I first started buying blackjacks, handmade in El Paso, lemonwood peg soles, 9-iron leather, steel shank, all that. And suddenly my feet didn't hurt anymore. I could be in the bar standing for 9 hours and my feet did not hurt. And and it changed everything. So now here I am in the desert and like walking around in the sun. I'm like, I put on one of my fedoras. I'm like, this looks stupid, because I was flipping the brim up all the way so I didn't look like, but I was like, this doesn't work. So that's when I started buying cowboy hats. And I start off with flat brim ones, but the only ones you get flat brim are those palm leaf ones, and they're so heavy. And that was the other thing. So at the end of the
that
day,
doesn't fit for Vegas much.
Yeah,
heat wise.
No, and wait, like at the end of the day, I was just like, get this fucking thing off my head. And so I'd take a shower and go out. And so people who saw me during the day knew me as the guy that was in the cowboy hat all the time. And people saw me at night. I was like two personalities. And even like in LA, like people that worked at Trader Joe's near my bar that saw me during the day would see me at night. Like, where's your hat? You like go out without a hat? I'm like, yeah, I do. And then that happened. So all the man, what a long story about hats. Go through to basically
I asked the question.
15 years of history on my hat. So I went to a meeting during the day with a beverage director for a casino who is known to be particularly difficult to deal with. And I crushed the meeting, and the sales rep told everyone like how Aaron came in there with his cowboy hat on, his cowboy boots, and blah 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 was talking, and he leaned back and he put his feet up on the coffee table. Was like, let me tell you something. You don't know anything about this industry. You're just repeating stuff that like lies have been told to you, and this is how it really is. And he'd be like, I didn't know that. And I was like, I know you don't. And I was like, dude, if you like this, buy it. If you don't. I'm not gonna like sell it. It's like it works or it doesn't. And so we had a nighttime meeting. And so I've been going out with sales reps all the time, talking about Aaron's cowboy hat. And then I show up with no hat. And they're like, where's your hat? I was like, well, it's night. It's not sunny. I usually don't wear them at night. They're like, you got to wear it. No.
We need the persona. You have to have that.
You can't. So that's when I had to start buying nicer. So then I was like, okay, well, I can't wear these palm leaf hats all day and all night because they weigh 800 pounds. So that's when I started buying the lightweight straw ones. And I had some beaver felt ones, but they were so thick and so heavy. And for Vegas, now whatever, I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, so that was the thing. And once I started buying the lightweight ones, they were real like cowboy hats. They weren't flat brims. They kind of looked like cowboy hats. And then, man, I was doing an event in Cave Creek, Arizona, and I saw this hat shop called Watson's Hat Shop, who I tag, and they never give me any love except when I call them to give them more fucking money. But damn, this guy's like everything is made from scratch. They don't use factory blanks. They because a lot of places you go there, it's like, I got a custom hat. It's like, no, you didn't. You got a factory blank and they shaped it and trimmed it. It's not custom. Custom is where they measure your head.
Custom. It's
custom is where they build the hat to fit your head from nothing. That is custom. And the first one I got was cool and I loved it. And then I bought this signature felt stuff that he was like, you'll wear this instead of straw because it breathes so well the way I finish it. And he was right. And
so what you're saying is he doesn't have to give you any credit whatsoever because his quality is just that damn good.
Yeah, for sure. And then Brim Makers, who does the hat bands, I had wanted this hat because when I was a kid and I did want to dress like my dad, that was like the height of, man, that was like late 70s, early 80s. That was Urban Cowboy. And I remember these hat bands and even like, JR had a feather hat band and, yeah, I mean, I remember everybody talk who shot JR. Hey, that's how old I am. I can remember that being a huge phenomenon. Everybody showing up at school wearing a who shot JR shirt.
There was a damn board game. Did you ever have to play the Dallas board game?
No, but yeah, and so I've been looking for one forever. And they all kind of sucked. And then I went on Etsy and I found her and I was like, those are legit. That's it. That's the hat band. And so I started buying them. And then I started following her on Instagram. And I saw like she starts sharing articles where where people were writing about her in like 79 or 80 or 81. So she's been doing it the whole time. It's like, well, that's why they're legit because she's legit. And
so you have what you effectively have is you have the most custom hats because you've got a custom hat maker and a custom band maker, and you push them together to make this beautiful creation.
Yes, yeah, I've always It's so the thing is I don't know. You just got to do it, man. I mean, I was always that way with like everything else. It's just like, hey, whatever. I'm gonna wear what I want or do what I want. And
so you're also into like a bunch of things, cigars.
Yeah.
Right. Like so you like cigars. What is what's the cigar? What's the cigar you go to right now that's like the thing, or do you have like is it situational?
It's situational. So lately, because it's been so hot, I've been waking up early and eating breakfast early and having a cigar and coffee after breakfast, like while it's still cool out. So it's been Killer Bee Connecticut's, regular Killer Bees, that other thing they have, I think it's called Defiance porcelain, the new Aladino classic. Those are so good. I even had some Aladino Corojo reserves that have been aging for about 6 or 8 months, and they're really nice now. Those are great because they're all like 45-minute cigars, so it's kind of which I prefer anyhow.
And this is a coffee cigar. Like, so this is like morning coffee cigars. Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a coffee that you put with it? Like, are you a coffee person too, or you just, I have coffee and I drink it?
No, I mean, I don't know. I usually drink Black Rifle, but
Okay.
it's like it's so weird. I don't know if it's because they blew up or there was all that weird stock stuff, but now some people hate them now. I don't know. I like
Mhm.
the way it tastes. I prescribe to it. I have the subscription, so it's easy. It comes to my house. Um, Before that, I was drinking like a local roaster,
Mhm.
Boulder City, which is pretty close. But yeah.
All right. So Aladino with a coffee, because it's, yeah. Everybody has like a whiskey pairing with, or whiskey and cigar pairing, but not everybody has a coffee and cigar pairing, and
You
that's
know what?
the thing.
Well, I can give you a coffee and whiskey pairing. Hot coffee is great with uncut unfiltered. Iced coffee is much better with uncut the younger. If you're gonna put some whiskey in your
Iced and
coffee.
uncut the younger.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And here's an adult pairing for you. The Tums multi fruit ones go with anything. So just get those.
I just bypass Tums altogether and move straight
This
into the pills. Give me a pill.
Oh, the pills are
Just,
bad. The
I
pills have
know
all
they are. I'm not.
just get the
I'm gonna die
smoothies,
for
man.
something.
Those
It's,
smoothies are delicious.
my wife is a Tums aficionado. I'll let her know. We'll
Yeah,
kind of get
that's
that in
a
there.
pairing for you that nobody's really talking about, and they should.
I mean, there, there's a certain age where that pairing makes a lot of sense, and I'm that age, and you're that age, but not necessarily every. Tim's probably not. He looks like he's a young guy. So you like motorcycles, right? And
Oh
and
yeah, I
I
love
saw
them.
you posted this the Softail Harley, I think earlier this week, or maybe it was last
Yeah,
week. I don't know. And that's the first time that I've seen a non-traditional Harley that I was like,
that is
I
a
like
very
that a lot.
polarizing bike. It's pretty funny.
It
And the
it
more I do to it, the more I make it like a naked sport bike, the more polarizing it gets.
My immediate thought was it looked like somebody took a cafe racer and a naked sport bike and it had a child. Like, that's
Yeah,
my immediate thought was
with
that
all
because
that Harley torque. I mean,
yeah,
that's
because
what
I've
makes
had a
Harley.
passion for like cafe racers my entire life. Like,
Oh yeah.
that's the bike for me. I don't like street bikes. I don't necessarily like cruisers, but that uncomfortable thing that you ride for an
Well,
hour
so
and be
yeah,
tired.
it's got like moto. It's more like a street
Yep.
tracker than but except for the pegs because it's got
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, look, I used to have a couple MV Agustas, and
Hmm.
when I was younger, man, and like I can rail on that Harley, but when I get home, I can walk.
Right.
When I used to go for a 2 hour ride on like my MV Agusta race bike, I'd get off that thing and be like, oh, and that was like when I was young.
You lay down on the
Now,
driveway for a half an hour to get your
oh,
bike
my
right again.
shoulders hurt, my hip, you've got those rear sets, so your hips are all cramped. My
Hmm.
hips hurt, my shoulders hurt, my wrists hurt, everything
It's not
hurt.
a mode of comfort at all.
Yeah, I mean the brutality. It was a 910R. I think it was like a 2007 or 2008. That at least had comfortable from the waist up. You were comfortable. My
Mhm.
hips still hurt, my knees still hurt, but like So this is, I don't know. It's cool, man. It's like totally. I love Harleys. Um, I love making them go fast when they're not supposed to,
Mhm.
and I love how you can hot rod them out and you can do anything and you can make it how you want and you can buy all these parts and
It, they're a distinct group of people that love Harleys, and I think maybe you've glitched, or I glitch. I don't know which one it is, but I'll keep talking. My uncle was hugely into Harleys for a very long time, and never forget. Towards the end of his career, he retired, and his goal was to purchase a Harley, and he goes out and he buys it exactly the way he wants it. It gets delivered maybe a year or a year and some change later, and he goes out for his first ride. He's got a pack of cigarettes in the front pocket of his shirt, and he's cruising down the road, and the pack of cigarettes falls out on the ground, and he swings around, comes back, and he's going to do the cool thing and lean over and grab a hold of it and pick it up off of the road, and he immediately lays the bike down. Like when 1 week after getting the bike, he lays it down, and that's like the saddest day. But he enjoyed the shit out of it. Enjoyed that bike forever. So it looks like we've lost Aaron. He may join us back again. Yeah, Tim, in Chicago, those are cowboy hats. In anywhere in the world, those are cowboy hats. We'll hang out for a second and see if Aaron makes his way back into this thread. I've the conversation has been great. We've had a lot of fun things to talk about, and so if he doesn't make his way back to chat, we'll be all right with that. Talking with people like Aaron is the reason why I began this podcast. I remember watching the fallout from the bourbon enthusiast barrel pick that happened and ended up being what called bourbon karma, and how they handled it. And I thought, this is a guy that has a passion for what he's doing. He is incredibly invested, and it's not a money grab. A lot of new brands can be what you might consider an attempt to make more money, to be as profitable as possible, to do whatever. And he doesn't seem to have that mentality, the expectation, the way that he managed that situation is through and through was kind of a way to give a brand an identity, which, I mean, the brand already had an identity, but it just maybe brought to the forefront what it really meant, who it really was. He's back now. Looks like he's back. We'll bring him back in here.
What
Hey,
happened?
what happened? I don't know. Was that me or was that you?
I don't know. I checked my router and it said I was connected to the internet.
Yeah, I don't know. It easily could have been me. Aimlessly rambled for about 5 minutes. I was able to keep it going. It's fine.
But yeah,
Um,
we're just saying I love
yep,
Harleys. And they're American. It's kind of
yep. My uncle up the road, he worked at a tire factory for his entire career. When he went to retire, that was the first thing he wanted. He was like, I'm going to buy a Harley. I'm going to ride. I'm going to do whatever. He went and ordered it exactly the way he wanted it, the specific purple color, the specific fairings, the specific chrome, all of these things, and went for a ride down the road, and a pack of cigarettes in the pocket of a shirt, because that's what you do. You have a pocketed shirt, and it flies out, and he loops around, and he comes back, which he'd been riding before, and he leans over to pick it up. He's like, I'm going to do the cool thing. Lean over, immediately lays the bike over, just scratches up the tank, scratches up the. But that
yeah.
can be freeing, right? Because now you don't have to worry. Like, he got it fixed, it buffed out or whatever, but it kind of takes that edge off of, like, I've got to put it in a glass case. I've got to make sure it doesn't get hurt, because it's meant to be ridden.
I
Like the
ride
way
them,
whiskey's
man.
meant to be drank,
Yeah.
Harleys, motorcycles, they're all meant to be ridden.
Yeah, it was weird because before I never had any free time, so I just I had a 2017 Road Glide like that was perfect for the desert because
Mhm.
you're on the freeway. No matter where you go, you're on the freeway a lot for the most part.
Right.
And then I started riding more and more as I had more free time. And I was like, oh, I was really maxing out the suspension, and because I was pushing, I was riding it, I was railing on that sucker. And so that's when I bought the CVO, and then I started riding that more and more and more. And then I was like, I want more, man. I want something lighter. And that's when I bought the Fat Bob. And so I have another one, a Lowrider S, that's in pieces. And I was like, the Fat Bob. I bought the Fat Bob because throughout the whole process, I mean, I never rode it totally stock. We put exhaust, a cam, and air cleaner on it day one. And then but I've had fun on that bike. And so every time something I wanted showed up, we put it on. But the bike's never been down. And I love it so much. And I'll tell you, smoking guys on sport bikes in the turns on that is the greatest joy. It's so much fun. I mean, I used to do it like when I had a Dyna. I had this a Dyna switchback in LA, and be riding two up with a girl on the back, and and that's the thing. Like when I rode my Italian bikes, I was like with leather pants, leather jacket, and I was like, and the Harley, I'm like, I'm free, man, like wearing a t-shirt. Now, when I really go railing on
Right.
the Fat Bob, I'll put on my race pants. But it's just, it's like I even had one guy where I pulled over, and he like followed me into this turnout. He was like, "What? I had to see what you were on. You're on a Harley." I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm on a Harley." He's like, I've never had anybody on a Harley pass me before.
That doesn't feel right to me. Like,
Yeah, he was
something
on
is
like
amiss here.
he was on a Honda, not the Fireblade, which is the super crazy one, but the one right down from that. But still, he was like, I didn't know. I was like, yeah, I mean, look, if we were someplace where you could go 180, I'm not going to go 180
right
with no fairing in this motor. I mean, I'll probably max out at like 110, like you could eat, but on the street, like,
right
you know, it's so much more fun for me. And then also having that no fairing and the upright riding position, like you can make the apex of a turn faster because you've got better visibility. And that's what, and then you've got those moto bars, and that's what it's all about. Because like in a racetrack, it's flat. You can see around the turn when you're hanging off that thing with your elbow on the ground. In the street, you can't see
right.
shit. You're gonna see
You need a head up.
shrubberies.
You need a head up.
Yeah. So you got to be up and high, like kind of hanging off the bike. And then once you have that apex made, then and you want all that leverage of those motor bars to counter steer like as fast as possible and then goose it, making that second half of the turn. And I mean, you can do whatever you want. That's what I feel is relatively safe as opposed to going to. I mean, I see these videos of these guys on Instagram taking their sport bikes where I used to go. They're they're it, they're exaggerating. They are putting knees down in places where I remember I can go back and watch my videos on my GoPro 1 where I'm going faster than they were with no knee pucks on my pants, no knee touching down, and they're like fucking got their elbow dragging on the ground. I'm like, you guys are just doing that for Instagram. But
now don't age yourself by saying GoPro 1. Don't do that to yourself.
Age is what it is, man. You either getting older or you're dead. There's
right.
no,
Yeah, that's everybody's like, oh, you feel good about getting older. I'm like, it's better than the alternative. You have two
exactly.
options.
Yep.
So it's not just bikes, it's not just cigars, it's not just whiskey, it's cars too.
I love
right?
them.
Like you have a car, you have a collection thing. Like, what did you collect something when you were a kid?
No, because I didn't fucking have any. Well, no, not really. I'm trying to think. No, I mean, I didn't have any money as a kid. I mean, I had a paper route right away, but yeah, maybe Star Wars figures or something like that. But that was just like, yeah.
Because this is what I usually find with like people that are into cigars or they're into cars or motorcycles. Like when they were a kid, they had figurines or they had baseball cards or they had something that they collected and they just got adult money and so they started collecting adult things.
No, because for me, it's all about the experiences. It's kind of this argument I get in with the guy that does the cars. The bike guys understand it. Like I'm like, I want this bike and I want it to do this. They're like, yeah, man, this would be cool. We get it. All right, you know. And the cars, it's like, I want this car for this driving experience, and so I want to do this. And the guy's like, but this car's too nice, and you need
to put it on a trailer to haul it to where you're going to go.
Yeah,
and you drive it off the trailer and you show it to people.
And he's like, well, you know, engine stuff. And I'm like, I want to do this to make it perform better. He's like, oh, but it's so nice. I'm like, who gives a shit? Who's going to see it? No one. Me. I don't go to shows. I'm not fucking driving to Cars and Coffee. Everything I have is to get away. I want to go for a drive by either with a girl or myself and to get away and like go and have this experience. And that's why I like the old cars. Even like the Monte Carlo with the Global West suspension and all that. It's still an analog experience and it's cool. And it's got an 8-track. You put the phone in the back and you like pick out what 8 tracks you're going to take for the drive. And, you know, and again, that motor is not built to match the fucking suspension. So I'm like in this fight with him. I'm like, I want headers and I want heads and I want a new manifold. And he's like, oh, but it looks so good. I'm like, it's already too late. The cat's out of bag, dude. We did fucking 17 and 18-inch wheels and suspension. It doesn't look, it's not a restoration. Like, let's make the motor match, you know?
Right.
And so, and even the bikes, it's like, the CVO, I can fucking cruise on that. I've got my seat has removed. I can put the backrest on and just put it in cruise control, do whatever. It's fun to go slow. The lowrider I'm building is like kind of be a cruiser and it'll look super like I won't be able to park that thing anywhere. I'll get stolen. And then the Fat Bob is just people like, what? Like there's people like, holy shit, that thing's a ripper. Oh my God, I want that bike. And then there's other people like, I don't get it. Like, why is the seat orange and the handlebars orange? I'm like, are you two? I don't understand. Like, what's happening?
You know, if you don't understand, it wasn't meant for you. And that can be okay. So you like analog experience? Are you a vinyl record guy?
I have 8 tracks. I don't have any
8
vinyl
tracks. So
records.
that's where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some records. I just don't have a record player.
Hmm.
But I mean, I went home and got a bunch of my records from my parents. But yeah, I mean, I do have an old stereo. I've got a Sansui amp from '72 and some what do you call it? The Advent the bookshelf, the smaller bookshelf speakers.
Yeah.
They're great for my office. I found those new old stock.
There's something about those analog experiences with its, 8 tracks, cassettes, vinyl. If you want to like move forward in somebody's recording, you're listening to
Yeah.
an album. There's not an exact science like with a CD, with your iPhone or whatever. You just jump to the next track, but like with tapes, with records, you like, I think it's sort of
Oh,
right
especially
here.
yeah. I mean, you can fast forward an 8 track, but man, you don't want to. That's a
No.
gamble. That thing you could break the splice.
Right.
You could
Either the
do
8 track falls apart or you end up halfway in the middle of the next song, not exactly where you want to be. And so you're forced. I was talking
yeah.
to a musician a couple months ago, and I said, like anytime I listen to a new album, I listen to it end to end because I grew up in a time whenever they crafted it in a specific way, right? Track 1 meant something, 2, 3, 4. There's a chronology of what they're trying to experience. And 8 track, vinyl, cassette, they all sort of enforce that behavior because you
Right.
couldn't easily jump ahead. And so they had to take you on some sort of an analog journey. I
Yes.
love that.
Well, 8 track usually gets screwed up though because they have to rearrange the songs to fit
Right.
on the track, and that
Right.
was one of the big gripes about them. Is like the album wouldn't be in the right order, or you're listening to a song and it fades out, and then that changes tracks and it comes
Right.
in.
But as they're
But
creating, they still
whatever.
have to think about that thing. They have to think about, okay, well, now we have to take what our original thing was and like, how do we make it work here?
Yeah.
And it's not just like we throw them in a storage device and now you can just have 40
Yeah.
million songs. And I remember driving down the road, like flipping through a CD thing, like, oh, here it is, or a
Yeah.
tape deck.
Oh yeah, I remember that going on road trips, and I think I'd want to rock out the whole time, but like with after an hour, you're like listening to the softest stuff, just like la la la
Yep.
la.
You end
Like
up on public radio. That's where you end up on public radio,
yeah,
or either
like
somebody's like
yeah,
got just a dulcet tone talking about, international politics. You don't care. You can just ignore it.
no,
Or it's like
no.
some
For
classical
me,
music.
it's like female musicians like
Right.
singer songwriter. Like you're just like, oh yeah, fucking rock. And then after an hour, it's like
My head
just sing,
hurts. My heart
sing,
rate's a
yes,
little elevated. I got to slow down a bit.
sing to me. Let me hear you.
Yeah. So what's your favorite car to road trip in? Like, so because you do
Now
drives out into the desert, you go out and kind of do stuff. But like, if you're gonna like, I'm gonna drive for like 8 hours. If you had to pick a
I'm
classic
not
car, you're
a
not gonna drive.
classic car. No, I don't want to drive anywhere for 8 hours.
No.
No, no.
Well, all right
um,
then. Easy answer.
yeah. I don't. It's too long.
It is a long drive, but like I said, I live in rural Western Kentucky. The closest good airport 2.5 hours from here, so we're
Oh
just
yeah.
like used to like you want to go somewhere, you're gonna drive 5 ever. Like it's gonna be a whole experience. I have a couple more questions, but I don't have a ton. I want to go back a little bit. Let's shifting slightly back into whiskey. You were talking about rare and limited whiskeys, and that big, that's a place where whiskey nerds get off. There's no money in it, right? You made the
No,
statement. There's no money in rare and limited whiskeys.
no.
Um, eh, what are your feelings or thoughts on how retailers combat secondary markets, right? Because you have this like secondary market where people can sell a bottle for an inflated price, and as a retailer, you have a choice of selling it at retail and watching someone else make $800 extra, which probably doesn't make a ton of difference in your bottom line at the end of the year. But like somebody's profiting off your thing, or do you sell it at that price? Like, what do you think? Are you allowed to say anything about that as a seller of
Well,
whiskey?
I can't influence. I mean, that's the
Hmm.
thing that like I keep telling people. I was like, man, you want to look pro? Don't use MSRP.
Hmm.
There is no such thing as MSRP. The manufacturer does not suggest the retail price. That is a violation of the 3-tier system, and
Hmm.
that is a manufacturer influencing a retailer. It's SRP, and the only people we can suggest a retail price to is the distributor, and
Gotcha.
and they have to tell the retailer. Um, I think it's all it's a tough question to answer because you
Mhm,
look, all I can tell you is what I do, and that is price the stuff based on how much it costs to bottle
mhm,
and the juice and all the things that I normally use as my formula to figure out pricing. I'm not going to be like, the one thing that was really super expensive was the experimental rye because I had to pay out the butt for those barrels, and it is what it is. It's just
mhm,
how it goes, man. I'm sorry, but I'm not trying to cash in on anything because my plan is to be here for a long time, and so eh, whatever happens to the market will happen, and if it doesn't collapse, then whatever.
mhm,
But if it does, people you can fall out of favor. Nothing lasts forever,
mhm.
or you maybe you could get it to last forever, but it's going to take work, and it's going to you have to have the understanding that nothing lasts forever. And if you want to continue a relationship with your, whether it's your fan base or the people that are buying your product regularly or whatever it is, appreciate them. And that's what I try to do by giving everything to a distributor at a price that is reasonable, where everything that if you bought it using the basic formula, what I sell to distribute to, what they sell to retail for, if everybody's marks it up their percentage, I want everything to be a perceived deal. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, you're gonna get guys that like, oh, I would the uncut and filtered's only worth this much, in my opinion. I'm like, what? Okay, what's that based on? Uh, you know, nothing.
Anecdotal evidence. It's always
Yeah,
based off of anecdotal evidence,
yeah.
like
So
what
you're
their
you're al-
opinion of a thing is
you're
worth.
always gonna get haters or whatever, but I think
Mhm,
for the most part, everything I do is a perceived value, and that's important to me because I I'm trying to get it into the hands of the people that enjoy it because they're the ones who are going to give us longevity and tell their friends, and then obviously you're going to have people that are growing up and oh, Smokewagon is good, or they're coming to the age where they want to buy bourbon, and they're like, oh, Smokewagon's good, and everybody's being, there's just a positivity. You're moving into a positivity, not like, oh man, they were doing great, but then they overpriced their rare and limiteds, and so that's my attitude. It's like
mhm.
whatever. It's like we're here forever. The amount of money I'm going to make on 25 cases of a single barrel ain't shit
No.
compared to like effortlessly moving things that are perceived values. And so my goal is, to focus on making sure that every bottle of straight, every bottle of uncut the younger, every bottle of uncut, unfiltered, and small batch is like what is good, as good as I can do it, and then for me, the rare and limiteds were supposed to be fun, experimental things to get out and people could drink them. And that was the whole point behind doing 10,000 bottles, all the same, because I get them at a good price. And then I come across something cool, or I decide to make something cool, and I just write on the label. And then we have these color coordinated medals that
Mhm.
represent the brand, so that differentiates each one. And of course, I got hate on those people like, oh my god, what are these like participation medals? It's like, dude, I'm just trying to figure out a way to get this out in the most affordable way possible.
Right,
Like I didn't put it in a gift box because a gift box, by the time it comes to retail, minimum $20. That's for a shit one. So like you
right.
see the stuff that's like 5 years old and it's like $140. I guarantee you like $60 that's a fucking
The
gift
bottle.
box with a
I
pillow,
mean,
and all that shit. So for me, and that's why there really hasn't been a rare and limited except for the online only ones, because those are barrels that I've been planning on for years.
mhm,
Because there's no reward for me creatively to do a rare and limited and not have people drink it and just have retailers sell it for too much, or have backdoor deals with consumers who put it on secondary and then those people buy it and nobody's opening it. That because there's no money in it, you know.
right.
And so the reward for me is, hey guys, I created this. I think it's cool. I hope you like it. And like, "Nom, nom, nom, nom. Oh, it
I
is
want
cool, man. This was
right. You want
great."
to get the feedback on whether it was actually
Yeah.
cool or not, not like see
Yeah.
an infinite number of pictures of somebody having it sitting on their shelf and being an asshole about, well, I have the thing, but it's a speculative purchase. I'm not gonna actually open it at
Yeah,
all. You know,
yeah. So that's so that and I think I think retailers they should have the same. Nobody's going to get rich off having a bottle for 2 grand. Like, what's that? Is that going to change your life?
nope.
Wouldn't you rather establish a relationship with a customer and, like, hey, maybe only one person gets the bottle and you don't really make any money off of it, but they're going to appreciate that. And then you have stuff that, like, they're going to buy in volume, and
Right.
and people are making decisions with their money on where to go shopping. And I would think that you would generate more goodwill with customers by you know, hooking up a regular. Like, when I go buy guns, when I go buy rare guns, they give me a deal on it because
hmm
they know I spent so much money there, or like you know what I mean?
You're gonna
It's
be
like
back. They,
I'm gonna be back.
they're aware that you're going to be back, and that's like I understand that's the position that retailers end up in is that if they get 50 allocated in rare bottles on any given year. If they only have 30 customers that might actually buy them, the other 20 they
Now,
stick out on the shelf, and some asshat's going to flip it
well,
or
so by the
buy it,
way,
not
you,
drink it.
you can't not all allocated stuff is created equal.
Right.
I don't have brand ambassadors out there saying you need to buy this much silver dollar, you need to buy this dollar amount of silver dollar and this dollar amount of straight if you want to get this, right? And so now, especially bars, like I'm not a brand going to bars saying if you want to have this bottle, you have to sell this dollar amount, by the way, which is totally illegal. But hey, I'm just going to pay the fines because that's part of my business practice, right? That's not me. I'm not doing that. I never tell anybody, but that's a practice, right? And
hmm
so you have this practice where allocated bottles are meant to drive the sales of less desirable things. And in that case, the retailers like trying to make up all their money because they're like pressured to move all this shit.
hmm
So they don't get they're not necessarily getting a deal, a case break. Like, oh, okay, if I buy a pallet, can I get a deal? No, you got to sell it though if you want that special thing. So now they're trying to take their allocated bottle to make up for the money they lost trying to move all the shit that they had to
Right.
move to get the allocated ball. I don't ever see anybody like price gouging straight to move a certain amount of it to get something rare from me.
hmm
Because that does not come from me, and it does not come from the distributors. And, you know, so it's like, so not all brand allocations are created equal. You know what I mean? Like, some
Yeah.
allocations, it's like, fuck, I gotta make up for all that money I fucking lost selling that
How
dog
much
shit.
Wheatley vodka do you have to sell to be able to do some other things? And I understand what you're saying, and I think that you, whether intentionally or inadvertently, have identified a better way to combat the brand ambassador concept. A brand ambassador or a local rep, whatever, sales rep, however you want to phrase them. Their job is to push something, like they're
Yeah.
pushing this volume, this product, this whatever. But by creating, I don't know if super fans is the right word, or creating, apostles or disciples or whatever you want to create. Like, they're
I
going into
mean,
the retailer asking for the product. So
yes.
they're pulling now. And now the
Yeah.
retailer is asking the distributor saying, hey, can we get this
Again,
thing? Can
none
we
of
create
this
a
is
pull?
like a calculated like this,
Right. Okay. So
it's
that becomes the thought. Like, you've inadvertently done this thing, but you've created what may be a more efficient system where you're not having to push crap to be able to sell other things. You're
yes.
getting a legitimate idea of what people
I am told
want.
repeatedly that it's amazing, like from distributors or things, to have a brand that people are asking for. And all I did was the complete opposite of everything every supplier did to me as a retailer. And that made me fucking crazy and that I hated. And so when I came into this, by 2016, I was 15 years into the bar business, and I
Mhm.
was so over the bullshit and so over and so going way back to 2 hours ago, talking about the Instagram. There was all these videos that were a reaction to me dealing with the supplier in the bar business. And I'm like, hey, you know what's bullshit? This is bullshit. Or,
Mhm.
there is no definition for single barrel. I mean, It's funny because even like my first videos on the private barrels, people look at the back of a private barrel now and go, "This tastes no, duh, it's a single barrel." They weren't real back then. Okay, when we did our first private barrel, my biggest complaint from sales reps from the distributor is, "Why is there only 22 cases?" And I said, "It's a 9-year barrel. How many do you expect there to be?" And they like be like, "Oh, well, from Breckenridge, we get 60 cases." I was like, "Oh, do you? Let's do the math on a brand new 53
That's
gallon
amazing.
barrel, you know?"
Were they
And
using large casks? Like,
no,
did they
it was
have
a
something like
barrel program. And the way they got away with calling it a barrel program is you got a barrel. So if you
Mhm.
bought these cases, you got an empty barrel. And I mean, I talked to guys who've been in the business forever, and big brands, they'd come in and say, "How many cases you want in your barrel pick?" And they'd be like, I don't know, what, like 50? And they pull out a roll of stickers and just go through the store and put stickers on fucking bottles. And so when I came out with private barrel, I'm like, this is a real single barrel.
Mhm.
Like, it's not going to taste like the one you had before, and there's not a lot of them. And like it was, and so when you look at that verbiage on the back of a label now, it's like, what? Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But you got to understand, as it recently as 2016, that was unheard of. I
Well, I
mean,
mean, and there's still technically no definition of single barrel, right? Like, there's
there
nobody
is no definition of single barrel. You can
the
put
only
single
difference
barrel
is
on
that the
anything.
consumer is smarter now, and they know
Yes.
about how many bottles should come out of a barrel, but that
There's
could
still
fluctuate.
brands doing it, man. I just did
Right.
a fucking Zoom or a Instagram live a year ago, and they were like, just found out that somebody's barrel picks weren't barrels, they were blends. They were special blends.
Right.
And
Which can be a thing. Like, that's another thing. Like, like
by the way,
Penelope,
I'd
they do
prefer
that.
that. I'd rather, because it's creative for me. Like,
Right.
finding barrels is cool and all, but
Creating a custom blend for somebody, they, pick 3 or 4 barrels and you blend something out, like, that can be an exciting experience. There's a couple of brands that do that already, right?
right.
That's a thing, but, and you touched on the single barrel or the private barrel
By the
program.
way, I don't even know if they ever passed the legislation that gave a definition of cast strength.
I don't think
The
that's the
only
case.
proposed
I don't think
legislation
that's the
for
case.
cast strength was no water added after time of tax determination. Right?
Tax
You know what?
determination.
Yeah, everybody knows what that means, right? Everybody's not in the business. No, of course you don't know what it means. Why would you? Your time of tax determination is when you dump a barrel, because everything you have, right? So everything we're doing is to generate money for the federal government. That is
Right.
the
Yep.
only reason we exist as distillers. That is
Mhm.
what a bond is, right? So your bond is insurance on your tax. If everything burns down, your property insurance is going to pay you for your losses. But the federal government's like, yo, your bourbon caught on fire. Let's transfer out a bond. Where's our taxes? And you're like, well, we
Right.
don't have it. Yeah, you do. You got an insurance policy to pay us tax.
Right.
That's
It's
what your
gonna help
bond
cover
is.
that.
Yeah. So your time of tax determination is your tax basis of a full barrel is based on 63.6 proof gallon. Well, for us, because it goes in at 120 proof and it's 53 gallons. So 120 proof at 53 gallons is 63.6 proof gallons. If you don't know, a proof gallon is 100 proof. So
Mhm.
anything that's more than 100 proof will be more proof gallons per volume. And that is why everything is done in weight and proof. You don't do anything in
Right.
volume except for a bottle. Volume is wine gallons, which we don't use. So your time of tax determination is when you dump a barrel and you tell the federal government, hey, our tax basis is not 63.6 proof gallons. We lost fucking, I don't know, 60 proof gallons, or not 60, but like 10 proof gallons. So it's
Mhm.
53.6 proof gallons. So that's our new tax basis. And they go, okay, that's your time of tax determination. So that means why that sucker is sitting there, you can put as much water in it as you
Right.
want, as long as you haven't dumped it yet, right? Because adding water is not going to change your tax basis, because you could have 53 gallons at 100 proof, or you could have 40 gallons at 100 well, my math is wrong because I'm not doing exact
Yeah,
conversions.
whatever the math
But
works out to be it. If
to
there's a
be the
math
same,
nerd that shows up in the comments, they can eat shit. Like we'll
yeah,
just leave it there, right? You know?
but yeah, so your proof gallons with less volume can be the same as your proof gallon will be the same if you add water. You're not changing the alcohol content. You're just changing the alcohol content per volume, but it's still in the same vessel. So, yeah, there's that. So that was one of the videos that I had up, and people were like, "What?" Like, so when we had the thing happen, everybody started going to Instagram. They're like, "Wait, what? There's no single barrel, and cast strength doesn't mean anything, and this is bullshit, and that's bullshit." I was like, and it's even when I used to sneak people in there and I tell them about aging and tell them about stuff like this is the complete opposite of what I've been told every tour.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, you start telling the truth, it starts revealing something. I mean, because you think about what several distillers in Texas are doing, where because of the arid climate, because of the temperature, because of whatever, they're actually adding water in every year so they can continue to age. Because if they try to age it beyond 4 or 5 years, there's nothing
Oh
left,
yeah,
or it looks like
yeah.
black tar heroin or something.
That's what would happen here. You'd have
Right, so
balsamic
you
vinegar
have to
bourbon.
add water while it's aging so it can continue to age, right? Like
Yeah.
that's part of the process, but that becomes a feature in Texas, but in Kentucky, it's like, well, why are you adding water? Why would that happen, right? Well, because
Yeah.
you're trying to get more in the end, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things where, like, for me, it's always just like, I don't know, I'm just trying to make it taste better than everybody else,
Right.
you know? And it's like, I just feel like, do you guys even like bourbon? Because you're talking about how you did this, or you're talking about how you did that. I just try to make it taste better. I hope you
Does
like it.
does it really matter? Do you feel like, and this is the thing that people always, when people find out you're like a whiskey nerd, they're like, all right, like, what's the best whiskey? What's the best price? Whatever. Like, if you buy a bottle and you drink it and you feel like you don't get ripped off for what you paid versus what you drink,
Right.
none of the rest of it matters.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that experience of drinking
Right.
that?
The rest of it becomes like some form of mental masturbation where we're just like, oh, well, I have,
Well, that was like, there was some forum, not forum, but bourbon group. And this guy was like, I bought a bottle of Uncut the Youngers. And any good? It's like, you bought it. Fucking go drink it, dude. It's like,
you can literally answer that question for
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. If you open it and put it in a clear vessel made out of molten sand that has dried, you can put it in your
It
orifice
doesn't even have to
and
be green. It doesn't have to be clear. You can make it
yeah,
green. It can be
yeah.
any
Just
number of
fucking
colors.
drink it. And if you
Right.
don't like it, hopefully you got it at a price point where it doesn't matter. Go make a cocktail or something.
Right.
It's not expensive, but why you listen to these people? And then of course, because everybody wants to oh, it's gasoline, oh, it's hot garbage, oh, it's this. It's like, is it? I don't know. I just had a beverage director and a 5-star Michelin rated chef in there, and they thought it was amazing. But hey, what does
Right.
that chef know? You're the real expert, Mr. It's hot garbage guy. You know what I mean? It's like, why would you even go to these guys for advice? They just want to hate on shit anyhow.
It's real apparent. And okay, so it's hot garbage. Guess what? Well, because you purchased something that is, so my bottle is 57.22% alcohol by volume. Add some water. If it's too hot for you, add some water. You have a
Yeah,
glass,
or put
drop
it on
some water
ice,
and see what happens.
or be descriptive, because like, if I don't like something, I'll tell you exactly why I don't like it. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna be like, oh, that's dog shit. I'll be like, oh man, it's too tannic, or oh, it's
Right.
they don't cut their hearts right. I can tell it's got some bad alcohols in it, or it's too oaky for me, or I don't like the way this flavor balances
Right.
with this flavor, which is my problem with basically every single finished product I've ever had. And
So you're saying you're not going to do any finished products?
dude, I would do a blend of rum and bourbon before I did a finished product. At least then it could be exact. At least I could like, but I don't want that. I like
Mhm.
the way bourbon tastes. I love bourbon and I love rye and I love the flavors that they have. And I don't want to dilute them with something else. But that's just me.
Mhm.
And I don't and because of my personality or whatever, like comes across like I'm not judgmental about it. If you like that stuff, that's cool. I'm not like, oh my
Right.
god, you like finished.
But you have
I
a
just
brand and you have an identity and you're not going to go that direction
I'm
because
not
that's okay.
chasing after anything that I don't feel true about.
Mhm.
It's like what's the point? It's like we've gotten here to this wonderful place where we have no investors, There's no pressure. There's
Mhm.
no, we're not publicly traded company. There's no board. There's no shareholders, no nothing.
You have like what, 2 people that make a decision
Just
and that's
two
it.
people, man. We're fucking free. Just what it's cool. We'll just like I said earlier, if it just stayed like this, man, it's cool. It's like I was talking to a distributor and they wanted me to do a national contract. I'm like, gotta be free, man. You know,
Mhm.
just gotta live my life the best I can. I'm not gonna have you bring me down with your rules.
So there's a very libertarian vibe that seems to exist in what you're saying. We won't go too far down that. You said no finished products. Have you thought about doing something that is not traditional charred American oak? Like, because there's French oak and there's Mizunara and there's all these
uh
chinkapin and all these other things. Have you thought about other oaks?
I haven't because I mean, there's no time to think about like really getting
Mhm.
creative like that right now. Just trying
So what I hear is not
we're just trying to
yet.
do, yeah, we're just doing by the way, I mean it's like
Mhm.
I mean, but who knows, maybe one day I will fucking blend rum and bourbon. I don't know, just see what it's like. You're like, oh, that's gross, never
Well,
mind, that was a terrible idea.
but what is it? Is it bourbon and rye is already being blended. So you've already got that market space has been taken by the
Well, bourbon was
you,
already been blended and I kind of did okay there, so like
right,
who knows.
right.
I mean, who may, I think probably the next thing I would do is blend the two ryes that were, come out with the malted rye and the
Hmm.
bottle when they're both established. Maybe see what a blend of those two would be like.
Hmm. And I mean, blending. There's a ton of future, I think, in blending in North America. You see there's a couple of websites that they started off as a website and now they're finding craft distillers and they're blending craft distillers together. I think blending is sort of taking off, right? And so I think you're part of that, like the fact that your identity was based off of blending bourbon
Yeah,
barrels together to create a unique expression, whether it be uncut, unfiltered, or the younger, or any of the things that you're doing. But
man, younger is the hardest.
the hard, you say it's the hardest,
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Get that taste like that with 4 year cast strength, no water, like real cast strength, not phony definition, no time attacks determination cast strength, like actual no water ever.
right.
That's why, by the way, that's why I chose uncut unfiltered because uncut means no water added ever.
Mhm,
It's an absolute term. Yeah, dude, it's hard. I like I said, the first month was okay, but
mhm.
it's definitely I like the way it is better now.
Well, obviously, mine is not the first month because it's really really good. I don't know that my expectations were high or low on it. They were probably high because I've had a number of your offerings, and so then you kind of you keep raising the bar on yourself, and it sort of sucks
Yeah.
because then like to be just standard, like you could have a standard appreciation of uncut, the younger because uncut unfiltered, and because small batch, and because single barrels, and
There's
because
people that
straight,
like
they're
uncut the
all great.
younger better because it has no oak.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't get a ton of oak on it myself, but I also try not to get too deep into tasting notes. I just try to tell people like I like it or I don't like it because
Yeah.
it feels I don't have the authority to say those things like, oh, I get all these other flavors that are in here. It's like good.
I only do it with uncut, so people kind of
Mhm.
have an idea. Like
Well, I mean,
my
you taste enough whiskey, you get to be the authority. Like you're the
well,
guy who's creating the blend. You get to
I
say
can't
it.
do these things where it's like 1,200. It's like I try to give people like is it spicy? Is it
Mhm.
candy? Is it oaky? Just so they have an idea of what it's going to be like. It's gotten better doing it as the reels. Or when I was really sitting there thinking about it, writing out the description with pictures, I was like, oh, then Instagram was like, if you post a picture, you're wasting your time. I was like, cool, I'll do it. I'll do it this way. It's easier.
Right. Do you see you guys ever changing size formats? Because there's this 700 ml in the rest of the world. 750 is North America, but we've seen some 700s like sneak into the United States. Like, do you think this is a thing that's going to happen, or you think we're going to stay where we're at?
Well, I think for the US, I think if you're US brand, primarily in the US, you'll be 750.
Mhm.
I think, obviously, probably scotches, you'll start seeing them all in 700 now that's an approved or anything, cognac, vodkas that are bottled overseas, things like that. I think that's where it makes sense.
I think and I may be wrong, but I think that when Jack Daniels did um their most recent, the bonded and then the malted mash bill or whatever, they did their two like special offers. I think they're both 700 mLs, but it's sort of that, like if you go to a gas station, you pick up a Kit Kat bar and it's like 33% less fat. It's because they made the Kit Kat 33% smaller, right?
Right.
Like, is this a thing where we combat pricing by
Oh, stealth
decreasing price?
inflation.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, hopefully not. But I do know that Jack Daniels, a lot of that stuff, like when the company that I deal with for liquor bottles, when I was asking them how we do this, they're like, "Oh, we do it for Jack Daniels," and there's all these Jack Daniels products you can't get in the U.S.
Right.
And so you never know if those bottles were originally created
For some other thing and
for
they
the
just reused
European
them.
market, and they're like, "Oh shit, we can release them here now too," you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah, my immediate assumption is with an operation that size, they're just testing the market. They're like, can we get away with doing 50 less mLs per bottle? Because if you're Jack Daniel
Well, let me
size,
tell
if
you
you run
something.
that 50 less, like that's a huge
If you're
savings,
Jack
right?
Daniel's size, that law was what? How many months old is it? 6? They can't
Something like
move
that.
that fast. They're big giant steamship, man. For them to like try to get 700 like it had to have been something they were going to bottle, and it was a
Right.
package that was created for the European market, and they said, "Oh, hey, that's what I
Unless they're
suspect."
the reason why the law changed, right? Like, are they the reason? Are they the lobby that created it so they can save? Like, that's a high volume, right?
I would say that it would be more like Diageo would have done it because they
Mhm.
have such a vast amount of foreign like I mean,
And being able to
yes,
unify
yes,
across
Jack
all
Daniel's
nations
sells
would
a
be
lot,
great. You know. Yep.
but if you go and look at if you search brands that do more than a million cases a year
Hmm.
globally, yeah, sure, there's only Jack Daniel's and Jim Beam and Bullet and like Maker's Mark as far as bourbons, but when you do whiskeys, it's like, you know, Hennessy sells more 9-liter cases than Jack Daniels.
Right.
Like there's all this stuff that you don't even think about that, it's probably all those guys that are like, hey, why do we got a bottle 750s for the US market when globally we're doing 700s? And so,
Being able to like unify across the globe has to
yeah,
have
I
just
mean, I can tell
immense
you,
savings.
yeah, I can tell you the people that come have experiences with these big brands like Brown Forman and Diageo and Saz, Buffalo,
Mhm.
nothing can happen that fast. Like for them to come up with a package
It's
for
turning a cruise ship. Yeah.
700
Yeah.
is like, man, that's like 2 years. I mean,
Yeah.
look, they're just Jack Daniels is just now coming out with all their like, super premium brands like 5 years into the thing,
Hmm.
it's like, you know what I mean? It's
But they'll also be able to eat those premium brands if the market does collapse because they've got the volume to consume it. They won't get hurt by that.
oh no, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it took them a long
You
time
can
to
tell how far behind they are.
yeah.
Yeah. Like, you've got like real craft, they can react, kind of turn on a dime. And then when you get to like mid-range producers, they're maybe a little bit behind if you needed to, but they're probably the ones I would challenge it that your mid-range producers are probably indicating where the innovation is going to be.
Well, that's what I try to do.
Right. And then your craft can meet that real quick because their distiller looks on Instagram's like, oh shit, this is a new thing. I can make this
It
today.
it it all
You know?
depends. Well, yeah, like if they're making it themselves, but you gotta understand too, you have to be planning for this stuff,
Right.
Like if you're a non-distilling supplier like me, and you've been like, yeah, we're just gonna buy inventory and
Hmm.
everything's gonna be cool. And we can sell 4-year bourbon for $85, and all of a sudden you can't. And now you got to start trying to find someone to contract to still with. You're kind of shit out of luck because what are you going to do? Like best case scenario, come out with a 2-year bourbon in 2 years. You
Right.
know, I mean, I've been planning for this since 2015.
It sounds like you may be the bourbon market whisperer. Like you were like, see what's about to happen next. I'm gonna watch
I
this.
mean, it's very easy because everything's cyclical, and I've been
Hmm.
in the bar business for 2 decades now, so you just kind of get an idea of, what's going to happen and what's. But all the what. But the other thing is, it, it just makes it so you're prepared.
Mhm.
So what if it doesn't collapse? Great,
I mean,
I'm prepared.
if it doesn't collapse, you can just continue to make more money. If it does collapse,
Well,
you're
it's
prepared
not
for it.
so, it's not necessarily more money or less,
Mhm.
for me anyhow. It's like, yeah, if it doesn't collapse, then great. Uncut sells as much as as it does, and
Right.
small, straight and uncut the younger are what they are, and whatever, it's cool. And if it does collapse, then we'll just pump out more straight and uncut the younger and fill that hole with those. It's just,
Right.
but that's
It,
where I wanted to be. It's not like we're banking everything on this.
yeah.
It's like, hey, let's be. I want to be as healthy as possible and able to, you know, withstand any trends, and then at the same time, w- we could still give people an affordable product that is, superior. I mean, that's the thing. Like when Straight won two double golds, that was more important to me than anything else, because that's like
Mhm.
everybody can get it. That's cool.
Yeah, you've got a what would be considered a standard shelf offering that is getting high accolades, and it's competing amongst its peers. And above. It's punching. Maybe a better phrase. It's punching above its weight.
I mean, the thing is, and for it to get any cheaper doesn't come from me. Well, it does, but I know what other big brands sell to distributors for,
Hmm.
and we're not that far off. You
Hmm.
just see their stuff for like $22 because of all the volume discounts that everybody's
Right.
willing to do. And so maybe we could get there at some point. We can't get there now, but it's like, well, I got it. I got that stuff to where like I know what things are going. I was like, man, I was very with the 36%. That's all that stuff, by the way, that's selling for maybe 45 to 50 cents less to a distributor than what I'm selling to. They're all 80 proof. We're 92.5 proof. It's non-chill
Hmm.
filtered, high rye mash bill, all that stuff. So I was very proud that I could I could do that. That was cool.
All right. I'm at the end of my questions. I got 3 pages of notes that we covered most of. I got the pages
All
over
right.
here. We're at 2.5 hours. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about?
No.
Okay. Where can someone go buy Smokewagon in an online fashion?
Oh,
You have some slots.
the Nevada distilling website. We ship to a lot of states. Even some states like, Texas. The online guy, got the license to ship to Texas.
Hmm.
I think the only states he doesn't ship to are the ones where it's prohibited, and
Yeah,
people get mad. They're like,
the
"Why
the
don't you
Buckles
ship
of the
to us?"
Bible Belt, the Utahs and the Kentuckys of the world, where you're not allowed to
Oregon,
drink because
you can't
y-
ship to Oregon. Oregon went out of their way to send a cease and desist letter about shipping to that state.
I wouldn't have called that one.
Yeah.
That one throws me off a little bit. So you can go there. You've got obviously you've got a significant Instagram presence with Smokewagon Bourbon on Instagram.
Oh, hey, it's Smokewagon whiskey now, because
Sorry, Smokewagon. That is true. I found somewhere where it was still referenced as Smokewagon Bourbon. It may be on your website. I don't remember where like it's supposed to be that, and it didn't go to the right place. But it is Smokewagon whiskey. That is a correct statement.
I had
I
to
have to
change
go.
it for the
I'll,
rye. I
I'll
mean, the
dig that up.
bourbon's still called Smokewagon bourbon, so it's not.
Right. Um, Fantastic products. You're
Thank you,
a
appreciate it.
fantastic, owner slash ambassador slash face of the brand. From the beginning, where we kind of pick up the story originally of that situation with that particular single barrel, and I didn't ask the question about are there more single barrels that are coming, because I'm sure you
uh,
get that question on a regular basis. Um,
well, in a few years, it's much easier to
right.
get to a point where we can have really open the faucet for, straight and uncut the younger versus, um, and
How
that's
many
the thing
more
too.
people can you please by having straight and uncut the
I'm
younger
not
out
gonna
there?
do 5-year barrel picks. I mean,
Right.
I would like them to be at least 7. As much as I say I'm not an age statement guy, I do think it's different for barrel picks. Those
Right.
are the things that I put age statements on, and,
Well, I mean, you're getting into a marketplace where there are 400 other brands that are doing 4, 5, 6 year barrel picks.
yeah, and for me, it's like they were so good,
Hmm.
and I don't want it to be a situation where they come out and people are like, "Remember when they were good and now they suck? What
Right.
a jerk! Aaron's a
You don't
jerk
want to go
with his
backwards.
stupid, yeah, his dumb 5-year barrel picks."
Right.
I mean, that was the whole thing when I did the only 5-year. People want, we turned off the barrel picks and people like, just do 5 years. I'm like, no, they're terrible. I've tried all of them. Here's
Mhm.
one. There was one that was good.
Right. But people don't believe you. They think you're just holding out on them because,
That's when
whatever.
people like get mad at me when I'm not in their state. They're like, why aren't you in my state? Oh, because I hate money, dude. I hate your state. It's so stupid. I'd
Right.
rather
I
not have
specifically
any
don't like
money.
the state you live
Yeah.
in, right? Like whatever you're in, wherever you are, that's the reason why I don't like you. But I
It's
appreciate
not
you for
because we
joining
don't.
me.
It's not because we don't have the inventory.
Right. I
It's
appreciate you for
personal.
joining me. This is the thing that I came across when I started this podcast. I was like, I'm going to do this for a year and I'm going to talk in a room by myself and just kind of see how it goes. And then after that, I'm going to start inviting people on and see if somebody joins. So when you send out emails, you expect like everybody to be like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Why would I waste my time? And I was incredibly surprised that people of your size and volume are willing to talk to small holders, to people like me that have, small followings or whatever. So I truly, truly appreciate
Hey,
your
man.
willingness to be here.
It's like when I was doing Zooms with bourbon clubs during COVID. Sometimes they have 20 members or whatever.
Mhm.
And they're like, we can't believe you're doing this. We're nobody. I was like, well, first of all, nobody's nobody.
Right.
It all adds up. It all adds up. It's I think it's important, and we've been doing it for 2.5 hours, so obviously I enjoy it. It's a
Right.
good time. Fucking talking about myself for 2 hours. Oh, boo hoo, so hard. And
There could be worse things, right?
yeah, and it's cool. And I think it's a good way to connect. And
Mhm.
what was the other? And it's just like whatever. Like I don't perceive myself as man. It's like I don't know. Everybody that's watching it, you're all the reason that I am where like doing what I'm doing, having a great time. I did not have a life of privilege. I had to work very hard to get here, and
Mhm.
it's very rewarding. And I understand why it's just like I understand why it's all happened is because of all of you, and so it's I'm never going to be in a position where like I'm too big or I'm too. If I am, then maybe I should sell because I've become an asshole, and
Right. Well, I
you
mean,
know,
but it's understandable, people, because you have X amount of hours in a given day to give of your time. Like that's just what you got. And but you're speaking to the reason why I think your brand is successful is because of that specific attitude. It is about connection. It is about human interaction. That's what
oh
makes
yeah,
brown spirits fun. Like you were talking earlier about vodka and premium vodka, but for me, at least in my college age, vodka was a thing that we consumed at the bar whenever we were, after a specific situation. But brown spirits and specifically whiskey, it to me is more communal, more community, more friend based, more conversation based,
oh
and
yeah.
you guys sort of embody that. And so, like I say, just incredibly appreciative of the opportunity to talk with you. You ever come up with something you want to promote, I'm always going to be a channel that's like, yeah, come on, we'll talk for another 2 hours. We'll move into some other thing. I'll try to dig deep and find something
That's it. That's
that
all I
hasn't been
got,
covered
man.
yet.
If we did another one, I'd be like, hey, what's up? All right, got it. I told you all my stories.
Here's the thing. There's a degree of research that I do, and I was talking to a previous guest on an episode. Like, if I have to get into LinkedIn and find like a job that you had whenever you were like 19 years old, we'll talk about that. Like, we'll talk about anything here.
What did I do when I was 19? I was a busboy and a waiter when I was 19.
Well, there's a whole thing because I spent a lot of my college career waiting tables and being in public service. Like, I guarantee you got at least 2.5 hours worth of stories whenever you were waiting tables and working in bars. They're there.
I don't have them because I was so stoned. I don't remember anything.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
I got that.
I would go to the beach and go surfing all day, and then come in and fucking and take no dose. So take no dose and get stoned. That was
See, there we go. Well, there's more to talk about. We'll get that in there.
I
There's
remember
no-dos and there's stone. And
one time I was like, I'm not gonna get high at work, and my boss was like, "Don't ever come here stoned again." I was like, I'm not. This is the one time. But it was
the day that you're not stoned, he's like, "Don't be in here stoned." Like,
oh, that was why I loved it so much, because it just woke me up, and then all of a sudden it didn't. I was like, well, fuck this. I can sit around and stare at a cloud sober. I don't need to. I liked it because it made me all like, woo, like,
yep. Yep, and then we grew up to whiskey. We shift into that concept. So I'm gonna dump you off. We're gonna do an outro here. Like I said, I appreciate you being here tonight.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks
thank
so
you
much.
everybody that joined. I appreciate it. I hope they're still there, or people that watch it in the future.
Yeah, there'll be a few more that'll listen and watch than what joined tonight. But hey, we
No
had a
problem,
good time,
man.
so appreciate it.
You bet.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in for this offering of the Embellish podcast. If you enjoyed this, please leave me a review on whatever platform that you have to be consuming this on. Leave a comment if possible. Hit me up on social media at Twitter or Instagram using Embellish Pod and give me a follow so you can keep up with what's going on here. I can be found at www.embellishpod.com with all of my links, accounts, contact details. I'll be back again next week with another new offering for you. So until then, cheers and thanks for hanging out.